Chapter 2099. Moronu, I love you to death. A gorgeously dressed man walked over with glowing eyes after seeing Moronu. Get lost. Moronu's face darkened, and he kicked the ladyboy away. Then he turned and glared at you, huffing. If it wasn't for this idiot, how would those people have mistakenly thought that he killed both men and women? Now, as long as Moronu appeared, there would always be some men pouncing on him. Yu Huffing smiled sheepishly. He didn't think that his howl would cause such a big commotion. However, he was in the wrong, so he didn't say anything. The distinguished gathering wasn't a conventional martial arts competition. Instead, it was said that the previous distinguished gatherings put a large group of people into a mystic realm to hunt ferocious beasts. In the end, whoever killed the most ferocious beasts and was the strongest would be the winner. This was a little unfair compared to a direct martial arts competition. After all, one could cheat. However, if you could get others to help you cheat, that was also a part of your ability. Just like the ranking of the 100 Talents list. The competition was about to begin, and they would enter the mystic realm today. Moronu and Yu Huffing were on their way to the mystic realm. On the way, they inevitably saw more people. What puzzled Moronu was that because of the rumors, it was normal for those male cultivators to be hostile towards him. But why were those female cultivators looking at him as if they had a deep grudge against him? Yu Huffing chuckled. Don't you know? Now there are rumors out there that you have an affair with the top 10 of the 100 Talents list. You have to know that most of those people are men. They are all secretly in love with those female cultivators. So, Moronu's face darkened. He was speechless. Were the thoughts of these so-called geniuses really the thoughts of normal people? Why were they all so idiotic? However, Moronu didn't see the top 10 of the 100 Talents list, except for Ku Qingwan. Even Ku Qingwan had disappeared without a trace after meeting Moronu at the Rong family. On the other hand, Rongzhu often appeared in Moronu's line of sight. This little girl had probably fallen in love with Moronu. However, what made Yu Huffing sigh greatly was that Rongzhu was truly unrequited. Under the various murderous gazes, Moronu, Yu Huffing, and Rongzhu remained composed. They chatted and laughed as they made their way towards the square of the Rong family. In particular, Rongzhu held onto one of Moronu's arms as she smiled like a flower. This made people even more jealous and hateful. However, Moronu didn't care too much about it. Only mediocre people wouldn't be envied. He was a genius, after all. Naturally, he would be hated by others. There were already quite a few people gathered in the square, about 1,000 people. These 1,000 people were the top geniuses in the Milky Way star field. After all, the Rong family's meeting of heroes was not something that could be attended as and when one wished. Without a certain level of confidence, one simply did not have the qualifications to do so. You're Moronu? You're only in the 4th level of the insight realm. As soon as Moronu and the other two entered the square, a very beautiful young woman walked over. Then, she stared at Moronu with disdain. Who are you? Looking at the arrogant and disdainful woman, Moronu said coldly. He was sick and tired of these idiots. Did he know her? Fan Yubing's expression instantly turned cold. Who was she? She was one of the top 10 beauties in the Milky Way star field. At the same time, she was a super existence ranked 6th on the 100 Talents list. Who in the Milky Way star field did not know of her? This guy actually pretended not to know her. This made her very angry, because she felt that Moronu was doing this on purpose. This guy must be doing this on purpose to attract my attention. Fan Yubing thought to herself. The disdain on her face became even more intense. Do you think you can attract my attention by doing this? Fan Yubing said disdainfully. Moronu immediately looked at Yu Huffing. Yu Huffing, tell me, I did live in the same world as you. Why do I feel that there are more and more idiots in this world? It's completely different from my previous world. Yu Huffing pretended not to hear and turned his head away. If he answered Moronu's question, he would definitely get Fan Yubing's attention. At that time, Fan Yubing's suitors would be able to kill him. Idiot! Fan Yubing was so angry that her face turned green. She fiercely glared at Moronu and left. So much so that she forgot the purpose of her visit to Moronu. Morong you brat. Master Luan Ruiming wants to see you. A cultivator walked over and looked at Murong Yu arrogantly. I don't know him. If he wants to see me, tell him to come over himself, Murong Yu said impatiently. You'll regret it. That person was stunned and then left fiercely. Yu Hufeng gave Murong Yu a thumbs up. Murong Yu, only today did I realize that you're very arrogant. That Luan Ruiming is #1 on the 100 talents list. Level 9 of the Genesis realm. Whether it's strength or background, he's a rather terrifying existence. Murong Yu shook his head. If Yu Hufeng knew that his enemy was at the heaven tier, then he wouldn't be surprised. He wasn't even afraid of heaven tier elites. So why would he be afraid of these peak stage Genesis realm people? In the following time, quite a few people came over, but they were all sent away by Murong Yu. These people either came to mock him or wanted to challenge him. Murong Yu wasn't interested in any of them. And apart from Yu Hufeng, no one present saw Murong Yu as their equal. After all, Murong Yu's realm was there for all to see. Many people thought that the reason why Murong Yu could participate in this meeting of heroes was entirely because of Ku Qingwan and Rong Zhirua's relationship. That girl in green is one of the top 10 beauties, and also the 8th on the 100 talents ranking, Murong Jingxian. As for the beauty beside her, she's called Hu Yanyu. She's ranked 10th on the 100 talents list and is also one of the top 10 beauties. Yu Hufeng began to introduce the top 10 beauties and the top rankers on the 100 talents list to Murong Yu. As for the male cultivators in the top 10 of the 100 talents ranking, he only briefly mentioned them, and his gaze didn't linger on them for long. Aren't they all your goddesses? Why don't you go over? Seeing Fan Yubing, Murong Jingxian, and the others surrounded by those young geniuses, Murong Yu couldn't help but smile and say to Yu Hufeng, this guy knew so much about these female cultivators, so he must have put in a lot of effort. Yu Hufeng shook his head. I still know my limits. You have the heart, but no guts. Murong Yu was rather disdainful of this guy. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the crowd, and they all looked in another direction. Murong Yu also looked over, and just happened to see Ku Qingwan leisurely walking over from not far away. After comparing, Murong Yu realized why Ku Qingwan's arrival was so popular. Ku Qingwan, Fan Yubing, Murong Jingxian, and Hu Yanyu's looks were similar. But if one looked closely, one would realize that Ku Qingwan was more popular. Moreover, Ku Qingwan's potential was greater, and her background was more terrifying. Therefore, her ranking on 100 talents ranking was higher, and she was more popular. My wife, your husband is here, hurry over. Just as everyone was paying attention to Ku Qingwan, and Ku Qingwan's suitors were thinking of ways to approach her, a clear voice sounded in the square. Ku Qingwan staggered and almost fell to the ground. She was in an extremely sorry state. This was because she recognized Murong Yu's voice. Most importantly, Murong Yu was waving at her with all his might, as if he was afraid that Ku Qingwan couldn't see him clearly. This bastard! Ku Qingwan gritted her teeth, wanting nothing more than to slap Murong Yu to death. Her reputation had been completely destroyed by Murong Yu. With a thought, Ku Qingwan's face suddenly lit up with a brilliant smile, and then she slowly walked over to Murong Yu. Seeing the smile on Ku Qingwan's face, Murong Yu suddenly had a bad feeling. My husband, Ku Qingwan called Murong Yu sweetly, then hugged Murong Yu's other arm. Brat, do you know the consequences? We're only in the Rong family now. Once we leave the Rong family and go to other places, my countless suitors will make you beg for death. A smile appeared on Murong Yu's face, and at the same time, he reached out and hugged Ku Qingwan. I'm your husband. How would they dare to do anything to me? Aren't they afraid that you'll flip out? My wife, when are we going to consummate our marriage? Ku Qingwan's face instantly turned red. In this matter, she was indeed no match for Murong Yu. When Murong Yu acted shamelessly, she had no way to deal with him. Fortunately, the Rong family helped him out. A thin and weak old man suddenly appeared in front of the square. It was the old man that Murong Yu had seen before. Everyone, I'm very happy that you're all here to participate in the meeting of heroes. Now, let's begin the official competition. You only need to go through this teleportation formation, and then you'll be teleported to the front of a protective shield. Then, you only need to use the hand seals that you've cultivated on Enlightenment Star to enter the secret realm. Remember, the more ferocious beasts you kill, and the higher the level, the higher your ranking. This is related to the benefits you'll receive. Whether or not you'll be able to become Lord Tianming's disciple will depend on your performance. As he spoke, the old man swiped his hand through the air, and a spatial tunnel appeared before everyone's eyes. Big Brother Morong, there are many treasures in that secret realm. However, there's also danger. My soul was damaged in that secret realm, so you have to be careful. As they were leaving, Rong Zhuo suddenly transmitted her voice to Morong Yu. Really, Morong Yu was rather pleasantly surprised. He had always wanted to know what had caused Rong Zhuo's soul to become chaotic. If he obtained it, it would definitely be of great help to his soul's cultivation. Husband, let's see who can kill more ferocious beasts then. Kuqing Wan smiled sweetly at Morong Yu, and then drifted away, entering the spatial tunnel first. Yu Hufeng's heart trembled. He could already see Morong Yu being hunted down by countless geniuses. Chapter 2100. I'll go first. Yu Hufeng took a step forward and quickly disappeared from Morong Yu's sight. He didn't want to be hunted down by the whole world just because he followed Morong Yu. Most importantly, Morong Yu is too abnormal. If he followed Morong Yu, he might not even be able to kill a ferocious beast, because those ferocious beasts had all been killed by Morong Yu. Since that was the case, he might as well act on his own. Morong Yu also knew this, so he didn't say anything. After passing through the space tunnel, Morong Yu appeared in front of an invisible shield. This shield was exactly the same as the one before he entered the Rong family's residence. Even the energy fluctuations were the same. Morong Yu couldn't help but wonder if this shield was the same one. What was this shield for? Why did it have to pass through this shield? Seeing Morong Yu come over, the people around him glared at Morong Yu. But they didn't come over. After all, they weren't idiots. Now, their main goal was to enter the secret territory and kill more ferocious beasts. That was their main goal. As for Morong Yu, they would settle the score with him after they came out of the secret territory. Either that, or he could kill Morong Yu in the secret realm. Every time I make a seal, the power of the shield weakens a little. If this continues, will the shield disappear? Morong Yu wondered. Then, he quickly made a seal and entered the secret territory. At the same time, in a hall deep in the Rong family's residence. Master Tianming, it won't be long before this shield completely disappears. At the back of the hall, a dignified middle-aged man sat on the throne. On both sides of the hall sat many people from the Rong family. Obviously, the dignified middle-aged man was one of the 11 celestial realm powerhouses in the Milky Way star field, Tianming. At that time, Lord Tianming will be able to break through to a higher realm and suppress the remaining Fate Realm cultivators, becoming the strongest in the Milky Way starfield. A big shot from the Rong clan said with a smile. If it weren't for the fact that this energy barrier is very strange and can't accept too much power from one person, our Rong family would be able to break it. Why would we have to go through so much trouble? Another big shot from the Rong family said gloomily. This shield was rather strange, as it could be broken by brute force. However, one person, no matter how powerful he was, could only decipher a little bit. Anything more than that wouldn't do. It was precisely because of this that the Rong clan organized this gathering of heroes, wanting to use all the geniuses in the world to break this barrier. Of course, the Rong clan could also attract more people to come. However, if their movements were too big and too frequent, they would attract the attention of other Heavenly Fate Realm experts. At that time, Tianming's goal might be snatched away. I think that Morong Yu is pretty good. I wonder if Lord Tianming is interested in accepting him as a disciple? Tianming nodded. That kid is pretty good. Something that even I couldn't do, he actually did it. Moreover, he's still only at the insight realm. His aptitude is pretty good, but whether or not he can become my disciple will depend on his performance. Recently, Zhuo has been very close to him. A middle-aged man who looks somewhat similar to Rong Zhuo frowned slightly. No matter, this kid's potential is pretty good. As long as he's nurtured, he might be able to become a heaven-tier expert. If the Roan family can rope him in, perhaps a heaven-tier expert will also appear in the Roan family. His potential is even greater than Jiruo, Kuqingwan, and the others. Tianming had an expression of praise. Hearing this, everyone from the Roan family was shocked. They had never seen Tianming look at someone with such admiration. Even Rong Jiruo's evaluation was far from that high. It was clear that Murong Yu's potential was really good. Although he's only at the 4th level of the Insight realm, his battle prowess is at the 6th level of the Genesis realm. Tianming dropped another bomb, causing many of the big shots from the Rong family to feel dizzy. Lord Tianming, is that kid really so terrifying? A big shot from the Rong family asked in disbelief. It wasn't that he didn't believe it, but that this was too shocking. Tianming nodded. With his ability, he knew everything that happened at every stage of the Rong family's meeting of heroes. The battle prowess that Murong Yu displayed naturally didn't escape his eyes. At this moment, Murong Yu had already entered the secret realm, so he naturally didn't know what the Rong family and Tianming were plotting. He also didn't know that they were talking about him. This secret realm was actually an independent space. It should be a space opened up by a primordial era expert, or a world that was separated from a dead expert. After entering the secret realm, everyone left in a hurry. No one attacked. This was something that everyone knew. They had only just entered the secret realm, so they hadn't even seen a ferocious beast yet. Even if they killed the other party, they would only be able to obtain the other party's treasures. And if they killed someone in the later stages, they would not only obtain that person's treasures, but also the ferocious beast core. Murong Yu didn't hesitate at all. After comparing the directions, he flew towards the location that Rong Jiruo had given him. Back then, Rong Jiruo's soul had been injured there, causing her soul to become chaotic in the end. Originally, Rong Jiruo had given that location only because she didn't want Murong Yu to barge in and invite danger. However, she had never thought that it would become one of Murong Yu's target locations. Roar! There were many ferocious beasts in this secret realm, and they were all quite strong. Murong Yu had only flown less than 50 kilometers when he encountered several level 5 creation realm ferocious beasts. Although Murong Yu was completely uninterested in those disciples who were ranked or even became heavenly mandate, he still killed these ferocious beasts in passing. They were all soul attacks that killed them in one hit. After all, if one's ranking was good, they could also obtain other natural treasures as rewards. Apart from the ferocious beasts, Murong Yu didn't discover any natural treasures. After all, there were many ferocious beasts here, and although the Rong family's gathering of heroes wasn't held too frequently, the interval between was not too long. Even if there were natural treasures, they had already been plundered clean. Moreover, this was the Rong family's secret realm. Wouldn't the Rong family members come here to take risks and search for natural treasures? After walking for a while, Murong Yu took out the Rong family's token to take a look and discovered that his points were at the 1,000th place, which was the first from the bottom. First place, without exception, was the first on the list of 100 talents, Luan Ruiming. His ranking on the scoreboard was about the same as his ranking on the list of 100 talents. There wasn't much of a difference. Murong Yu couldn't help but sweat a little, but he didn't care. It was certainly good to be in the top few, but he didn't force it. After all, increasing one's strength was the most important. Along the way, all the ferocious beasts he encountered had their souls directly wiped out by Murong Yu. However, his points increased very slowly, and he was still the first from the bottom. Finally, he arrived in front of Canyon. After forming a hand seal, Murong Yu entered. Wong. As soon as he entered the canyon, he felt that the space here, and even the chi of heaven and earth, was very chaotic. Because of these objective reasons, Murong Yu even felt that the power in his body was slightly chaotic. Even the 2 soul balls in his soul space were affected, and the speed of their rotation decreased. Soul power was more like power, and it was slightly chaotic. Fortunately, Murong Yu's main soul in the Hichu Luo Shu was not affected. Whoosh! Murong Yu took out the Shadow Stepping Palace, and it floated above his head, blocking most of the chaotic power from the outside world. Murong Yu finally relaxed. However, as he continued to go deeper, the chaotic feeling became more and more intense. Even the shadow-stepping palace couldn't completely block the invasion of the chaotic power. This made Murong Yu even more careful. Whoosh! At this moment, a ferocious beast suddenly appeared, and then it slammed its claws at him. After a bang, the shadow-stepping palace was directly sent flying. Then, a wave of chaotic power rushed over wildly. Murong Yu remained calm, and the weapon fragment turned into a stream of light, breaking the void and quickly slashing over. Buzz! In the beginning, the weapon fragment was still flying in a straight line, but soon it started to sway like a drunkard. In the end, with a swoosh, it flew into the distance. Murong Yu was shocked, and he quickly controlled it. However, the weapon fragment didn't react at all, and in the blink of an eye, it had disappeared from his sight. Murong Yu was extremely shocked. The weapon fragment was his natal weapon, and he couldn't even control it. How could this be? If it was snatched away by others, it would hurt Murong Yu to a certain extent. Therefore, he repeatedly used the Saint's Soul slash to kill the ferocious beast in front of him. He didn't have time to obtain the crystal core of the ferocious beast, and had already unfolded his body and flew in the direction where the weapon fragment disappeared. During this process, Murong Yu had already chosen to hide. However, even if no ferocious beast discovered and attacked. But because it was getting more and more chaotic, Murong Yu's speed kept decreasing. However, fortunately, his connection with the weapon fragment was still present, and he could still sense that the weapon fragment was just ahead. If he was slower, he would still find the weapon fragment in the end. Every step was difficult. This was Murong Yu's current predicament. Actually, his speed was not affected at all, and he could still fly past. However, the chaotic power ahead was becoming more and more terrifying. If Murong Yu flew past, his strength and soul would probably become like Rongzhuo's before he could even find his footing. As a result, Murong Yu was very careful, and he only continued forward after investigating the situation. However, he also discovered that the chaotic power was extremely beneficial to the improvement of his soul's cultivation. Most importantly, the chaotic power contained tremendous soul energy. If it weren't for the fact that the chaotic power would heavily injure the soul, or even cause the soul to become completely chaotic, this would be a good place to cultivate the soul. If that was the case, why would there be chaotic power here? What was this chaotic power? How could it have such a terrifying effect on cultivation and the soul? Chapter 2101. Tyrannical. If there was a word to describe this canyon, it would be tyrannical. Whether it was the chi of heaven and earth, or the effect on cultivation or the soul, it was all like this. Murong Yu's battle prowess was not top-notch, but his soul was definitely top-notch in a Milky Way star field. Even he could not move around freely here, so it was easy to imagine. Rongzhuo's soul had probably been confused as soon as she entered this canyon, right? Since the power of chaos was so terrifying, Murong Yu did not continue in. Instead, he sat down with his legs crossed, at a position that was at the limit of what he could bear, and entered a state of cultivation. His cultivation or physical body would only be affected. Even if he cultivated, there would be no effect. However, his soul was a completely different story. Because of Rongzhuo, Murong Yu already had a good understanding of the power of chaos. Now, he had personally experienced the terror of the power of chaos. The power of chaos was similar to the power of faith. They were both formless and intangible, but they truly existed. Even if Murong Yu used various treasures like the shadow-stepping palace, he could not completely stop the power from seeping in. Under the influence of the power of chaos, Murong Yu's soul began to stir. It was about to become chaotic like Rongzhuo's soul back then. However, Murong Yu remained steadfast in his soul. As a result, although the speed of the two balls of souls was affected, Murong Yu's soul was not affected. Most importantly, his main soul was in Hichu Luo Shu. Rumble. Under Murong Yu's full power, the two balls of souls began to spin rapidly. As the balls of soul spun, strands of extremely violent power of the soul, drifting between heaven and earth, were constantly devoured. Murongyu's power of the soul grew rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. In fact, the balls of souls were slowly growing. However, Murongyu soon discovered that the power of the soul he devoured was different from ordinary power of the soul. The canyon was filled with a large amount of power of the soul. At every moment, the power of the soul Murongyu devoured was several dozen times more than the power of the soul elsewhere. However, the soul power that was devoured outside was pure. However, the soul power here was incomparably tyrannical and chaotic. Therefore, after Murongyu devoured the soul power, he still needed to refine it further to get rid of the violence and chaos. There were a few more procedures to be done, but because the soul power he had devoured was very rich, Murongyu's soul realm had improved quite quickly. 1. After an unknown period of time, a ripple suddenly appeared in Murongyu's spiritual space. Then, Murongyu saw a black dot appear out of nowhere near the two soul balls in his soul space. At first, it was just a small black dot, but it quickly grew bigger. Soon, it grew to the size of a fist. It was another soul sphere. Murongyu's heart stirred. Now that the third soul sphere had appeared, did that mean that his soul realm was about to increase? Murongyu's guess was right. As he continued to devour the soul power, the third soul sphere continued to grow. When he grew to the size of an ordinary planet, his soul naturally grew stronger. Fourth level of the insight realm. At this time, Murongyu's soul, cultivation, and physical body had all reached the fourth level of the insight realm. With the same cultivation, Murongyu's combat power had once again taken a huge leap. Originally, his combat power had only reached the peak of the sixth level of the creation realm. But now, he had already broken through to the seventh level of the creation realm. As long as he continued to improve, then his combat power would soon break through to the eighth level of the creation realm, the ninth level, and even surpass the creation realm and reach the heaven realm in one fell swoop. Soul, Shadow Step, plus the 9 syllables true incantation and other combat skills, I have no pressure at all to cross a small realm and kill enemies. Feeling the terrifying power erupting from his body, Murongyu's confidence soared. After his soul broke through, Murongyu felt that the soul power in the canyon was not as useful to him as before. Previously, it had reached dozens of times, and now was only equivalent to a few times before. One had to know that after the soul broke through to a higher realm, the soul power needed was at least 100 times of the previous realm. Therefore, Murongyu's soul strength, which was several times stronger, was basically dispensable, unless he planned to cultivate here for a long time. However, Murongyu did not have such plans. Therefore, after he only consolidated his current realm, he continued to advance. Perhaps it was because he had devoured too much soul power here, but Murongyu's soul actually had some immunity to this chaotic power. Although it was not like walking leisurely here, at least it was no longer difficult to walk. On the way, Murongyu looked at his points again. He found that he only had a pitiful 100 points, and was the last. And the points of the first place had already exceeded 10,000. It was 100 times of Murongyu's. Regarding this, Murongyu just smiled indifferently. Even if he did not get anything in the end, his soul had improved by a small realm, which was a huge gain. Sometimes people knew enough like Chonglo. Moreover, until the last moment, who knew what the result would be? The weapon fragment should be deep in the canyon, because Murongyu did not feel that the weapon fragment was moving. Finally, Murongyu stumbled his way into the deepest part of the canyon. The weapon fragment was the first thing that appeared in his line of sight. Something doesn't seem right. Murongyu furrowed his brows as he looked at the fragments of the weapon embedded in the cliff. He could feel that the origin tool was indeed a weapon fragment. However, this originally pitch-black and inconspicuous weapon fragment was now flickering with a faint black light. Moreover, the weapon fragment had become longer. The aura it emitted was even more terrifying. Muron, you could even feel the chaotic power from the weapon fragment. The chaotic power seemed to be emitted from the weapon fragment. Could it be that it merged with another fragment? This thought flashed through Muron Yu's mind instantly. Immediately after, his heart moved. Whoosh! A black light flashed through Muron Yu's sight quickly. The next moment, the weapon fragment that was stuck in the cliff had already entered his body. That's it. Muron Yu could not help but be stunned, and then felt extremely depressed. If he had known that it would be so easy, he would have collected the weapon fragment earlier. Why would he be in such a sorry state now? However, after the weapon fragment forcefully broke through his control, he tried to do so and realized that he could not continue to control the weapon fragment, so he did not try again. While Muron Yu was in a daze, a torrent of information flowed into his body from the weapon fragment. The weapon fragment had indeed merged with another fragment. Moreover, the newly merged weapon fragment was a rather important part. Therefore, part of the information about the weapon fragment also poured into Muron Yu's memory. Chaos Blade. This was the weapon fragment's name when it was complete. Now, the Chaos Blade was about half merged, and it would probably recover to its complete state after merging a few more times. After merging, the power of the Chaos Blade was even more terrifying than before. In fact, the Chaos Blade itself even carried the chaotic power. With a slash of the blade, the chaotic power would explode first, messing up the opponent's power and soul power. It would make the opponent lose the ability to fight back. With the help of the soul attack and the power of Shadow Step, Muron Yu was confident that he could even kill an existence in the 8th level of the Genesis realm with one slash. Even if it was a cultivator in the 9th level of the Genesis realm, it was not that he did not have the ability to kill them. This was the benefit of a good origin tool and a top-notch cultivation technique. Of course, the most important was still Muron Yu himself. If he was an idiot, even if he was given the top-notch cultivation technique and origin tool, he would not be as abnormal as Muron Yu. The chaotic power in this canyon should be due to the Chaos Blade. Now that I've taken away the chaotic currents, the chaotic power has immediately decreased by a lot. After a while, the chaotic power here will probably disappear completely. Muron Yu pondered, and his figure had already retreated quickly. He did not want to attract the attention of others. If Tian Ming and the others discovered, would they capture him and seize the Chaos Blade? Didn't they say that Muron Yu was Rong Zhiruo's benefactor? In the world of cultivators, biting the hand that fed them and biting the hand that fed them, ungrateful things happen all the time. Muron Yu really did not trust others who were not his own people. He took some time to look at his own token. His points were still a pitiful 100 points, and he was still the glorious first from the bottom. No one could compete with him. The second to last place already had more than 2,000 points, which left him far behind. As for the first place, his points had already exceeded 100,000. It was very terrifying. However, Muron Yu also discovered that although his ranking was still first from the bottom, he had already automatically risen to the 930th place. There was only one possibility for this result. 70 cultivators had already been killed or retreated from this mystic realm. The hunt had officially begun. By the time Muron Yu checked his token, his ranking had automatically risen by 1 place. Meanwhile, the points of a cultivator in front of him shot up by a few thousand points. One person was killed, and his points were stolen. Muron Yu suddenly stopped in his tracks. Then, he slowly turned around. At this moment, a figure slowly appeared in his line of sight. Level 8 of the Genesis realm. Muron Yu, give me your token and crawl under my crotch at the same time, and I'll spare you. Otherwise, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. The newcomer looked at Muron Yu with a face full of disdain, not taking Muron Yu seriously at all. You speak as if you can kill me instantly. Muron Yu looked at the other party like he was looking at an idiot, and suddenly took a step forward. The Chaos Blade instantly appeared in his right hand. At the same time, Muron Yu had already shattered the void and appeared in front of that person. The Chaos Blade in his hand carried the terrifying power of chaos, and he had already slashed down fiercely. Chapter 2102. The power of chaos erupted violently from the Chaos Blade. First, the Chaos Blade had already covered the body of that level 8 Genesis Realm cultivator. The power of chaos had no attacking power, nor did it have any binding power. But the power of chaos was more destructive to a certain extent. The binding power was even more terrifying. It directly caused that level 8 Genesis Realm cultivator's power and even soul to be instantly thrown into chaos. When his power was in chaos, he could not use it. When his soul was in chaos, he could not think at all. At this time, even if Morong did not use the power of Shadow Step, this level 8 Genesis Realm cultivator could not block Morong's attack at all. Pooh! With a raise of his hand and a slash of the blade, this level 8 Genesis Realm cultivator was directly cut in half by Morong. Even his soul could not escape, and he was already completely killed. One slash to kill a level 8 Genesis Realm cultivator, and Morong was only level 4 of the Insight Realm. If others saw this scene, they would probably be scared to death. Really overestimating yourself. Morong sneered and took that person's token. 50,000 points? Not bad. Morong laughed. Then, he transferred the other party's points to his token. Instantly, Morong's ranking soared from the original last place, 931 points, to the 500th place. 51,000 doppelgangers were only in the 500th place, and one could imagine how fierce the competition for the top rankings was. However, the first place only broke through 100,000 points. Thus, in the top 500, anyone who killed a ferocious beast could possibly increase their ranking. My soul has broken through, and I have also obtained the Chaos Blade. The harvest from this trip to the Mystery Realm is not bad. Now, it's time to hunt ferocious beasts to earn points. Morong thought in his heart, and had already soared into the air, flying towards the deeper parts of the Mystery Realm. The deeper they went, the more terrifying the strength of the ferocious beasts. In the deepest part, there were even ferocious beasts at the peak of the Genesis Realm. They were very powerful. Kuching Wan and the others were probably hunting ferocious beasts of that level, right? After all, killing such a ferocious beast was equivalent to killing dozens of ordinary ferocious beasts. Of course, not everyone had the ability to kill a beast of that level. Morong had obtained the Blade of Chaos, and in addition to his other battle techniques and cultivation techniques, he was confident that he could kill vicious beasts at the peak stage of the Genesis tier. Therefore, he also headed deeper into the Secret Realm. Along the way, whenever they encountered a ferocious beast, Morong would take the initiative to attack. Ferocious beasts below the peak stage of the Genesis Realm couldn't withstand his one-hit kill. All of them were killed. Of course, he had also been ambushed several times. But how could those people be his match? They were all killed by Morong. When he reached the depths of the Mystery Realm and approached the territory of the great beasts at the peak of the Genesis tier, his ranking had already charged into the top 100. The number of clones had already exceeded 100,000. However, at this time, the first place's score had reached a terrifying 800,000 points. At this point, the true experts had already begun to exert their strength. The people in the top 10 were all in the top 10 of the 100 talents list. Moreover, the gap between the points of these 10 people wasn't very big. As long as any of them relaxed, they would be overtaken by the person behind them. This freak, not long ago, he only had 100 points and was in the last place. Now he's already in the 80th place. 120,000 points. Somewhere in the Mystery Realm, Yu Hufeng looked up and sighed. Yu Hufeng's ranking wasn't bad, and he was now in the 50th place. This was his true battle prowess. Of course, the people in the top 100 now weren't all in the top 100 of the 100 talents list. After all, the ranking of the 100 talents list wasn't based on battle prowess, but on many aspects. The battle prowess of those ranked high might not be higher than those behind them. I have to continue. Who knows? I might be overtaken by this freak very soon. I'll definitely be overtaken, but I have to try my best not to let him overtake me so quickly. Yu Hufeng muttered, and had already launched a surprise attack on a level 8 Genesis tier vicious beast in front of him. A vicious beast at the peak stage of the Genesis tier. Murong Yu's figure stopped advancing, and he just floated in the void, looking at the black bear in front of him. Boom! Just as Murong Yu was checking on the vicious beast, a huge saber ray tore through the void and descended from the sky, ruthlessly slashing toward the black bear. A cold glint flashed past Murong Yu's eyes. Someone had snatched his prey. However, he didn't move. Since someone was helping him kill it for free, he wouldn't mind. He just followed the traces and moved forward for a distance. Because he was already invisible, neither the black bear nor the attacker discovered his existence. Roar! The black bear let out an earth-shattering roar. Then, it smashed the saber ray into pieces with a slap. Then, the black bear soared into the sky and charged in the direction where the saber ray came from. At this time, the attacker had already revealed himself. It was Dong Hua Qin, who was ranked 9th on the 100 talents list. Boom! 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 Dong Hua Qin and the black bear started fighting. It was obvious that Dong Hua Qin's strength was much stronger than the black bear's. After fighting for less than 15 minutes, the black bear's body was already covered in wounds. Roar! The black bear knew that it was no match for Dong Hua Qin, so after roaring, it turned around and tried to escape. However, how could Dong Hua Qin let it go? He chased after it. Soon, the black bear couldn't hold on any longer and was about to be killed by Dong Hua Qin. At this moment, the black bear that was running away suddenly fell from the void. Dong Hua Qin was even more surprised to find that the black bear's life force had completely disappeared. In other words, the black bear suddenly died, but it was definitely not killed by him. Whoosh! Before Dong Hua Qin could react, the body of the black shadow had suddenly disappeared. Obviously, it had been taken away by someone. Dong Hua Qin flew into a rage and slashed out with his saber. However, apart from creating a huge crack in the void and the earth, how could it hit the thief? The one who had acted was naturally Murong Yu. He first killed the black bear's soul with a saint's soul slash. Then, he directly put the black bear's body into Hichu Luoshu. At the same time, Hichu Luoshu teleported away. In this way, how could Dong Hua Qin attack Murong Yu? Dong Hua Qin let out an angry roar. He felt very aggrieved and angry. If the black bear was taken away by force, he would accept it. After all, he knew who took it away. But now, he didn't even know who the attacker was. He didn't even know how the attacker did it. Once this matter spread out, he would lose a lot of face. This was definitely the greatest shame in his life. Dong Hua Qin was furious. Dong Hua Qin took out the token and stared at all the people in it. But after an hour, he didn't see anyone's score suddenly soar. Once the score suddenly soared, and the increase was similar to the one of the black bear, Dong Hua Qin could basically know who did it. However, he was disappointed. Through the token, he found out the truth. Murong Yu had already thought of this. Therefore, after he collected the black bear's body, he didn't immediately dig out the crystal core or anything. He only sealed it in Hichu Luoshu. Although he wasn't afraid of offending Dong Hua Qin, there would still be some trouble. Murong Yu was most afraid of trouble. In the following time, Murong Yu continued to go deeper. He relied on spiritual attacks, the power of shadow steps, the blade of chaos, and various treasures, battle techniques, cultivation techniques, and so on. Murong Yu killed a few peak stage Genesis Realm great beasts in a row. These peak stage Genesis Realm great beasts had a lot of points, at least 50,000 points each. Murong Yu killed 5 peak stage Genesis Realm great beasts in a row and obtained 300,000 points. In addition to his original 120,000 points and the black bear's 60,000 points, his total score had reached 480,000 points. However, the first place's score had already exceeded 1 million points. There was still a huge gap between him and Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu's ranking had also surpassed Yu Hufeng's and reached 38th place. His ranking had soared rapidly. Most importantly, Murong Yu was only at the 4th stage of the Insight Realm. How could his points be so terrifying? At this time, Apart from Yu Hufeng, who had a clear look on his face, everyone else was attracted by Murongyu. Murongyu, the people in the mystic realm, and even the big shots of the Rong family. Every time his points increased, it was in the tens of thousands. In other words, Murongyu could kill a 9th-stage Genesis Realm Great Beast? How is this possible? No one believed it. However, apart from this reason, how could Murongyu's points increase so terrifyingly? Many people were looking for Murongyu. Other than wanting to kill Murongyu and snatch his token, he also wanted to know how Murongyu's points had increased so quickly. Cheating. He must have cheated. He's so close to Rongjia. Perhaps Rongjia secretly asked the elites of the Rong family to kill the great beast, and then gave the clone to Murongyu. This thought appeared in many people's minds. Very obviously, those who had this thought were all jealous of Murongyu. However, those top-ranked existences and the big shots of the Rong family knew that Murongyu could not cheat. Heavenswell was looking for a true prodigy, so why would it help Murongyu cheat? Moreover, Heavenswell was not interested in cheaters at all. However, if that was not the case, could it be that Murongyu really had battle prowess at the peak of the Genesis realm? While everyone was curious and doubtful, Murongyu's points continued to soar, and his ranking also shot up from the 30s to the 20s, and even had the momentum of rushing into the top 10. Murongyu's rapid rise made those who were originally in the top 10 feel a huge threat. Thus, they all fought even harder to kill great beasts to increase their points. Thus, the points of the elites who were ranked in the top 10 also started to increase rapidly. The gap between them and the people behind them grew wider and wider. And all of this was due to Murongyu's efforts. However, as the instigator, Murongyu was slightly depressed. Once those people started to fight, the gap between him and them widened again. Murongyu, I've finally found you. Hand over your token, or die. Just as Murongyu was searching for the next great beast, a cold female voice sounded in his ears. Looking in the direction of the voice, Murongyu just happened to see Fan Yubing, who was ranked 6th on the 100 Talents ranking and one of the top 10 beauties, walking over with a cold expression and a murderous aura. Chapter 2103. Murongyu had always been puzzled. He didn't even know this Fan Yubing, okay? Why did she always look at him as if she hated him? Looking at her murderous look, Murongyu really wondered if he was her father's murderer. Compared to Ku Qingwan, Fan Yubing's beauty was not inferior at all. However, her ranking was still below Ku Qingwan's, so she definitely could not compare to Ku Qingwan in some aspect. The feeling she gave Murongyu was that her battle prowess was slightly inferior to Ku Qingwan's. However, she was at the peak of the Genesis realm. After all, she was extremely terrifying. No matter how powerful Murongyu was, he was only at the 4th stage of the Insight realm. There was a huge gap between him and Fan Yubing. It was obvious that Fan Yubing thought so. However, Fan Yubing was indeed 6th on the 100 Talents list. While she was disdainful of Murongyu, she was also secretly a little wary. This was because Murongyu saw the hint of wariness hidden in the depths of her eyes. Murongyu immediately smiled. Fan Yubing, if I were to snatch your medallion, would I immediately rise to 1st place? Fan Yubing was 6th on the points list. She had close to 800,000 points. If she added Murongyu's 480,000 points, it was very likely that she would rush to 1st place in one go. Since Murongyu had this thought, why wouldn't Fan Yubing want to do the same? You overestimate yourself. Fan Yubing laughed coldly. Her face was full of disdain. As she spoke, she had already made her move. A cold glint flashed past Murongyu's eyes. When Fan Yubing made her move, he also took a step forward. Then, his figure disappeared between heaven and earth. Invisibility. After becoming invisible, Fan Yubing immediately lost track of Murongyu. Thus, she was stunned. However, a strong cultivator was still a strong cultivator. Her entire body was instantly filled with terrifying power. In fact, the power even overflowed. Instantly, the space around her body formed a power shield. This way, even if Murongyu launched a sneak attack, he would not be able to hit her directly. Unless, of course, Murong-yu could break through her energy barrier with a single strike. However, did Murong-yu have such powerful strength? At the same time, Fan Yubing made another move. A torrent of power erupted from her body, sweeping out in all directions, trying to blast the invisible Murong-yu out of the void. At the same time, her divine sense, which was as vast as the ocean, covered a large area around her as she searched for Murong-yu. However, Murong-yu seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There was no trace of him at all. Half an hour later, Fan Yubing still did not find any trace of Murong-yu. Thus, she took out the token from her space treasure in confusion. Apart from being able to check each other's rankings, this token could also sense other nearby tokens. If Murong-yu was lurking nearby, Fan Yubing would be able to discover his existence. The reason why Fan Yubing did not use the token earlier was because she did not want to use it. In fact, she felt that she had the ability to find Murong-yu, who was hiding. Buzz. As soon as the token appeared in her hand, Fan Yubing felt the token in her hand vibrate slightly. This was the response of other tokens nearby. It should be Murong-yu. Fan Yubing looked over and was about to use the token to find Murong-yu. However, at this moment, she was shocked to find that her body was frozen. In fact, even his strength seemed to have been sealed, and he was unable to move. What's going on? Fan Yubing was about to be scared to death. She began to struggle violently as soon as she thought about it. But at this moment, she felt the weight in her hand lighten. The token in her hand had disappeared without her noticing. Little girl Fan, thank you for giving me the token. If I get first place, I will thank you. Murong-yu's voice rang in Fan Yubing's ears. Die! Fan Yubing gritted her teeth and shouted angrily. She had already broken free from the control of Murong-yu's shadow stomp. Immediately, an incomparably violent energy surged out in all directions. However, even if she destroyed the entire world, she still could not find Murong-yu. Then, where was Murong-yu at this moment? How did he snatch Fan Yubing's token? It turned out that Murong-yu had entered Hichu Luoshu directly after becoming invisible. At the same time, he controlled Hichu Luoshu to get closer to Fan Yubing. Using the Shadow Stomp directly, Murong-yu could indeed suppress Fan Yubing temporarily. However, with Fan Yubing's strength, she would be able to break free from his control very quickly. Moreover, Murong-yu's goal was not to kill Fan Yubing, but to steal her identity token. Therefore, Murong-yu had been hiding until Fan Yubing took out her identity token. Only then did Murong-yu activate the Shadow Stomp. First, he stepped on Fan Yubing's shadow. Then he snatched her identity token. After he succeeded, he entered Hichu Luoshu. Before Fan Yubing could attack, he had already teleported away. 790,000 points. After checking Fan Yubing's points, a smile appeared on Murong-yu's face. Then, he transferred the 790,000 points to his identity token. Whoosh! Murong-yu's points shot up to 1,220,000 points. This was a rather terrifying point. Looking at the participants of the competition, only 3 people had broken through 1 million points, and none of them had reached 1,200,000 points. In other words, Murong-yu had now rushed to the first place. In an instant, he had rushed from the top 10 to the first place. This sudden increase in speed instantly attracted everyone's attention. In particular, at the same time that Murong-yu was rising strongly, Fan Yubing, who had originally been in 6th place, could no longer be found on the ranking list. There were only 2 possibilities that could have caused this situation. One was that Fan Yubing had been killed, and the other was that her identity token had been stolen. Those who were observant quickly discovered the relationship between Murong-yu and Fan Yubing. Thus, they speculated that Fan Yubing's identity token should have been stolen by Murong-yu. However, Murong-yu is only a small cultivator of the 4th level of the Insight Realm, so how could he have stolen Fan Yubing's identity token? Fan Yubing's battle prowess was genuinely at the peak stage of the Genesis tier. Cheating! Murong-yu definitely cheated. It's extremely likely that the elites of the Roan clan helped him cheat. Many people roared in their hearts, feeling indignant. However, The people ranked in the top 10 did not think so. This is definitely impossible to cheat. Unless Fan Yubing gave her identity token to Murong Yu. However, how could this be possible? And does Murong Yu really have the ability to steal Fan Yubing's identity token? Haha! I just knew that this freak would rush to first place. Yu Hufeng killed a ferocious beast with a single palm strike. After first glancing at his own ranking, he immediately laughed loudly. It was as if it was not Murong Yu who was first, but him. Although this score has temporarily put me in first place. However, those two in second and third place can surpass me by casually killing a peak stage Genesis tier ferocious beast. Since that's the case, then let's make it so that they will never be able to rise again. Murong Yu's eyes shone brightly. Hiding his figure, he had already soared into the sky. Wong. Not long after, the identity token in his hand vibrated slightly. There were other identity tokens nearby. Murong Yu did not hesitate to move, and flew in the direction that he sensed. Not long after, he saw an 8th level Genesis tier cultivator lurking in the dark with a nervous expression. With Murong Yu's current battle prowess, he could kill this 8th level Genesis tier cultivator with a single slash. However, he did not do so. Instead, he activated the power of Shadow Step and froze the other party. Then, he forcefully snatched the other party's identity token away. Another 100,000 points were in his hands. The gap between Murong Yu and the second place widened again. This bastard, Luan Weiming, was furious. Having his first place snatched away by someone else, he had long since lost his previous composure. At this moment, his expression was even more ferocious. Relying on his absolute advantage, ever since he entered this mystery realm, he had always been first place. He had always been chased by others, but had never been surpassed by anyone. However, Murong Yu, this piece of trash, had instantly stepped on him. This caused him to be unable to restrain his anger. If he were to encounter Murong Yu again, he would spare no effort to kill him. What drove Luan Weiming crazy was that in the following time, Murong Yu's doppelgangers were still constantly improving. Although each time they only improved by tens or tens of thousands, the gap between them and him was getting bigger and bigger. At this time, many people already knew what was going on. Murong Yu was frantically snatching identity tokens to increase his own points. In reality, many people had already given up on hunting ferocious beasts at this time. After all, there were only 3 days left. There were not many doppelgangers hunting ferocious beasts, so they might as well directly snatch other people's identity tokens. Thus, a strange scene occurred. Some people were originally unremarkable, but their rankings kept rising, and their points increased explosively. However, some people suddenly disappeared from the rankings after increasing for a period of time. Their identity tokens were snatched away, and some were even directly killed. 1 day later, there were still 2 days until the end of the competition. Murong Yu's points had reached as high as 3 million. Luan Weiming, who was in second place, had just broken through 2 million. There was a gap of 1 million points between him and Murong Yu. At this time, everyone was very clear. If there were no accidents, then the first place would definitely be Murong Yu. Of course, if Luan Weiming could snatch the identity tokens of the third, fourth, and so on, then it was possible to surpass Murong Yu. However, not to mention those people's strength, whether Luan Weiming could snatch it was still a problem. What's more, everyone had gone into hiding, waiting for the last day to pass. And the mystery realm was so big, it was really not easy to find someone who wanted to hide. I wonder if I can snatch Luan Weiming's identity token. Murong Yu thought to himself as he followed Luan Weiming from afar. Chapter 2104. Murong Yu had actually been eyeing Luan Weiming for a very long time. According to Murong Yu's understanding, this Luan Weiming was actually a very petty person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Most importantly, he was Kuching Wan's most powerful suitor. Before entering the mystic realm, this person had ordered Murong Yu to meet him, but Murong Yu ignored him. It was also at that time that Luan Ruiming already bore a grudge against Murong Yu. Now, with Murong Yu suppressing him, wouldn't Luan Ruiming hate Murong Yu to death? Just as Murong Yu thought, Luan Ruiming had long hated Murong Yu to death, and had even sworn to kill Murong Yu. Murong Yu was very afraid of trouble, so he would usually nip the trouble in the bud before it happened. This Luan Ruiming had a frightening background, though Murong Yu would not go so far as to kill him now. But snatching his token was still no problem. However, Luan Ruiming's token was in his treasure space, so Murong Yu did not have a chance to make a move at all. Snatch it by force, Murong Yu had even less of a chance. Thus, Murong Yu kept Luan Ruiming at a distance, waiting for a chance to make a move. Of course, this was on the premise that he was 1,000,000 points higher than Luan Ruiming. Otherwise, how could he have the leisure to do so? Things are going to get interesting. Murong Yu suddenly stopped in his tracks as a strange smile appeared on his face. When Murong Yu stopped, Luan Ruiming also stopped in front of him. Of course, it was not because he had discovered that Murong Yu was tailing him, but because he had met someone. Murong Yu also recognized that person. It was Dong Hua Qian, who was ranked 9th on the 100 Talents list. This pitiful child. Previously, Murong Yu had snatched a vicious beast at the peak stage of the Genesis tier, and even now, he still did not know who had done it. Dong Hua Qian, give me your token. Otherwise, I will take it myself, Luan Ruiming said forcefully as soon as he saw Dong Hua Qian. Dong Hua Qian flew into a rage. He was, after all, ranked 10th on the list of 100 talents. Although his strength was slightly inferior to Luan Ruiming's, he was still able to defeat Luan Ruiming. But Luan Ruiming wanting to seize his token was truly wishful thinking. Come and get it if you have the ability, Dong Hua Qian said with a murderous look. He was also full of anger. Very well, you have no self-awareness. Don't think that you're on the same level as me just because you're ranked 10th on the 100 talents list. Luan Ruiming sneered. He took a step forward and threw out a punch. Dong Hua Qian sneered and went up to him without fear. Thus, a great battle broke out. This was a battle at the peak of the Genesis tier. The aftermath of the terrifying power spread far and wide, shattering the heavens and splitting the earth, sweeping through everything in the world. Many people, and even the vicious beasts, knew what was going on, so no one came close. Even those in the top 10 of the 100 talents list did not come close. Of course, they wanted to reap the benefits, but it was not so easy to be the fisherman. It would be best if they fought for a few days and nights before the victor was decided. That way, they could take the opportunity to surpass him. Murong Yu was the only one who didn't leave. Instead, he snuck into the He Tu and Luo Shu and watched from nearby. Although Luan Ruiming and Dong Hua Qian were fighting fiercely, both of them were furious. But they did not lose their minds. This was because Murong Yu did not notice that they were using origin tools or treasures. However, after a while, Murong Yu already knew the result. Dong Hua Qian's strength was still inferior to Luan Ruiming's. Although Luan Ruiming was petty and vengeful, his first place on the 100 talents list was not for nothing. Bang! Dong Hua Qian was sent flying by Luan Ruiming's punch, and he spat out blood in the void. His body was severely injured in an instant. Luan Ruiming approached him step by step. Dong Hua Qian, don't force me to kill you. Luan Ruiming's face was cold and murderous. Dong Hua Qian looked at Luan Ruiming with a gloomy face, and his eyes flashed with terrible resentment. He still had various treasures, powerful origin tools, and life-saving trump cards. But he had them, and so did Luan Ruiming. What if he still could not defeat Luan Ruiming after using these things? At that time, Luan Ruiming might really kill him. As for this competition, given his identity and background, he did not care much about it. Anyway, he could not get first place. Thinking of this, Dong Hua Qian snorted coldly, took the token out of the space treasure, and threw it directly at Luan Ruiming. At this moment, Murong Yu moved. Whoosh! With a leap, Murong Yu appeared directly between Luan Ruiming and Dong Hua Qian. At the same time, he reached out his hand and grabbed Dong Hua Qian's identity token. The token disappeared into thin air. Both Luan Ruiming and Dong Hua were stunned and did not react for a moment, because they did not know how the token disappeared. Someone must have been hiding in the dark and snatched the token away. After a few moments, Luan Ruiming and Dong Hua finally reacted. Luan Ruiming roared angrily, and a terrible power rippled out, trying to shatter Murongyu in the dark. However, Murongyu had already taken advantage of the moment when they were in a daze to enter Hichu Luoshu and directly teleport away. Even if Luan Ruiming destroyed this world, he would not be able to find Murongyu. Haha, it's all in vain, isn't it? Dong Huacan laughed and then left. Luan Ruiming, one day, I will pay you back 100 times. Luan Ruiming looked at Dong Huacan, who quickly disappeared from his sight with a gloomy face. In his heart, he felt that Dong Huacan was playing tricks, thinking that he had thrown out a fake identity token. If you dare to trick me, I will kill you directly. Luan Ruiming gritted his teeth and took out the token from his space treasure. He wanted to see if Dong Huacan's token was still there. Buzz. As soon as the token appeared, it vibrated slightly. There was a token nearby. However, was anyone nearby? Could it be the person who was hiding in the dark? Luan Ruiming's heart skipped a beat. He was about to put the token back into his space treasure. However, at this moment, he suddenly realized that his physical body and even his strength had been frozen. At the same time, the token in his hand was directly taken away. By the time Luan Ruiming regained control of his physical strength, his token had already disappeared. After a round of crazy attacks, only Luan Ruiming's roar, which was filled with endless anger, was left in the world. Of course, it was Murongyu who had attacked. Dong Huacan had more than 1 million points, while Luan Ruiming's points were as high as 2 million. If all of them were transferred by Murongyu, Murongyu's points would be as high as 6 million, close to 7 million. In the remaining 2 days, Murongyu's first place was basically set in stone. Therefore, in the following time, Murongyu did not continue to intercept the other cultivators, nor did he hunt the ferocious beasts. Instead, he was looking for treasures in the secret realm. However, perhaps because the frequency of the meeting of heroes was too high, many of the heaven and earth treasures here were not very old. Thinking about it, there was nothing good in this secret realm except for a part of the fragments of the Chaos Blade. Murongyu's doppelganger increased by 10 points, and the points of the original 2nd and 10th place stopped increasing. This made many people's imaginations run wild. Murongyu's points were as high as 3 million after all. Those doppelganger that occasionally increased were probably killed by the ferocious beasts he accidentally encountered, right? But what was going on with the other two? Were they defeated by the people in front of them? In the top 10, except for the 3 of them, the points of the other 7 people were increasing rapidly. On the last day, Murongyu found Yu Hufeng, who was still struggling. This guy was so strong that he actually rushed into the top 20. Although he was only 19th, this result was already very good. Yu Hufeng, do you want to rush into the top 10? After meeting, Murongyu asked immediately. I also want to be first. Yu Hufeng rolled his eyes, but that was impossible. First place is definitely not possible, but second place is possible. While speaking, Murongyu handed Luan Ruiming's token to Yu Hufeng. 2 million points? This is Luan Ruiming's token? Yu Hufeng didn't believe it at first, so he checked it. When he saw that the points in the token turned out to be Luan Ruiming's, he wanted to throw the token away immediately. But in the end, he was still reluctant. Think carefully. Once you transfer the points in the token, although you can rush to second place, you will be hated by Luan Ruiming, even if he knows that you didn't steal the token. Murongyu warned Yu Hufeng. Yu Hufeng hesitated for a moment, then nodded. In the end, he transferred all of Luan Ruiming's points to him and crushed Luan Ruiming's token. Whoosh! 3,300,000 points. Yu Hufeng's ranking immediately shot from 19th to first place. He directly surpassed Murongyu. Whoosh! At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the token. They stared at the 3 words Yu Hufeng and were confused. Soon, they realized that Luan Ruiming, who was originally in second place, was gone. Luan Ruiming's token was stolen by Yu Hufen? How did this Yu Hufen suddenly become so strong? Just as everyone was shocked and confused, Murong Yu's points changed again. From the original 3 million points, it shot to 5 million points. He rushed to first place again. It was obvious that he had taken away Dong Huaqian's points. That was because Dong Huaqian had disappeared from the ranking list. Murong Yu had taken Dong Huaqian. Yu Yifeng was already on the 100 talents ranking, after all. But Murong Yu, this dark horse, was too shocking, wasn't it? Why did he keep doing things that shocked everyone after he appeared in front of them? First, he was Ko Qingwan's man. Then it was said that he had an unusual relationship with Rong Zhuo, and now he had rushed to first place. He was only in the 4th level of the Insight realm. Chapter 2105. When the time was up, everyone left the secret realm one after another. However, when they left the secret realm, they had to use the handprint to leave. When Murong Yu and Yu Hufen left the secret realm, they did not find a third person. After all, the secret realm was so big that there were many places to leave. In order to prevent being killed at the last moment, many people left quietly. Only Murong Yu and Yu Hufen left the secret realm openly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After leaving the secret realm, everyone was sent to the square of the Rong family. Here, no one was allowed to fight. Therefore, although many people looked at others unwillingly, they did not dare to do anything. As for Murong Yu, he was more like a delicious cake that was being stared at by others. All of them wished they could slap Murong Yu to death and snatch his command medallion. That way, they could replace Murong Yu and become the first. Murong Yu hadn't even steadied himself when a venomous voice rang in his ears. Murong Yu did not need to look to know who was calling him. Who else could it be but Luan Ruiming? At this moment, Luan Ruiming looked at Murong Yu as if he was looking at his father's murderer. His expression was so terrifying that it made people shudder. Luan Ruiming, what's the matter? Murong Yu looked at Luan Ruiming indifferently. He did not want to bother with this idiot. However, he knew that this idiot would not stop until he was dead, so he had to speak. You are the one who snatched my and Dong Huaqian's tokens, right? You just wait and see. Luan Ruiming said venomously. Murong Yu was stunned. He did not expect Luan Ruiming to reveal such shocking news in public. According to Murong Yu's estimation, this idiot would never admit that his token was stolen. However, in the blink of an eye, Murong Yu knew what Luan Ruiming was planning. Hearing this, everyone around was shocked. They all looked at Murong Yu in horror. Luan Ruiming's words once again overturned their understanding of Murong Yu. Murong Yu, I really didn't think that not only did you steal my badge, you even stole Luan Ruiming's badge. At that moment, Fan Yubing slowly walked over and looked at Murong Yu indifferently. Whoosh! 3 of the top 10 rankers of the 100 talents list had been snatched by Murong Yu. Everyone was suddenly thrown into disarray. Their minds were unable to accept so much shocking news for a while. Looking at Murong Yu, he was only at the 4th level of the Insight realm. How'd he do all this? Moreover, whether it was Fan Yubing or Luan Ruiming, they only said that Murong Yu had snatched their tokens, not that someone had helped Murong Yu. Who exactly was Murong Yu? Luan Ruiming, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. My badge was snatched by you, not by someone else. Dong Huaqian's voice was heard. He looked at Luan Ruiming angrily, his eyes spitting fire. Presumably, he was still holding a grudge over the fact that his badge had been stolen. Of course, although Luan Ruiming did not manage to steal in the end, and it was snatched by this unexpected person, Luan Ruiming was the main culprit. Therefore, not only did Dong Hua cannot resent Murong Yu, but he was also somewhat grateful to Murong Yu. If Murong Yu had not snatched the badge, Luan Ruiming would have been first. Moreover, because of Murong Yu, Luan Ruiming ended up in the same situation as him. He did not have a ranking. Everyone was confused again. They did not know what was going on. It seemed to be very chaotic. All right, everyone be quiet. I think everyone is very clear about who is first and second. The Rong clan has no objection to these rankings. First place, Murong Yu. Second place, Yu Hufeng. Third place, Kuching Wan. At the last moment, Kuching Wan's score skyrocketed and she instantly rushed to third place. Unfortunately, there was still a gap between her and the second place Yu Hufeng. Those in the top 10 will be given time alone with Lord Tianming. The 10th place will get half an hour. The 9th place will get 2 hours, and so on. The 3rd place will get a day with Master Tianming. As for the 2nd place, it would take 3 days. As for the 1st place, they will get 10 days. The big shot of the Roan clan explained to everyone the benefits that the top 10 experts would get. As soon as the big shot of the Roan clan finished speaking, the top 10 people were already excited. Although many people had powerful backgrounds, there are only a few celestial realm powerhouses in the Milky Way star field. Moreover, if they could get guidance from more than one celestial realm powerhouse, it would be of great benefit to their future cultivation. Sigh. Everyone else looked at the top 10 people with envy. The one who was envied the most was naturally Murongyu. He had 10 days to get along with them. If one's luck was good, these 10 days would have the effect of enlightening a cultivator. If Murongyu was a peak creation realm cultivator, it was very likely that he would break through because of this. Of course, it was also possible for the others in the top 10. All kinds of envy, jealousy, and hatred among the top 10 people. Even Kuching Wan, who had a powerful background, had a faint look of excitement on her face. Only Murongyu's expression did not change. In the eyes of others, they all thought that Murongyu was showing off. In fact, Murongyu was really not interested in the 10 days. The only thing that piqued Murongyu's interest was the other rewards. The top 100 people would all get rewards. However, those rewards were insignificant to the people on the 100 talents list. The rewards for the top 10 were more precious. Top-grade creation realm origin artifacts, liquefied origin liquid that could improve comprehension, single-use forbidden artifacts refined by celestial realm powerhouses, and so on. There are so many types that even a genius like Kuching Wan, who had a powerful background, could be considered an absolute treasure. The reward for first place. The Roan family big shot looked at Murongyu with a smile and waved his hand at the same time. The next moment, dozens of various treasures floated in front of him. Origin artifacts, pills, natural treasures, and so on. So many? Everyone was shocked. Even Murongyu was a little surprised. Wasn't the Roan family a little too generous? However, it was obvious that they were thinking too much. Murongyu, you can choose any 3 treasures from these treasures, the Roan family big shot said slowly as he looked at Murongyu. Any. Murongyu narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the dozens of treasures floating in the void. Although there were many treasures, they were all creation realm treasures. The Rising Sun Dao residence had plenty of natural treasures and pills. Murongyu did not lack these. Therefore, Murongyu directly ignored these. As for the origin artifacts, the Rising Sun Dao residence also had origin artifacts. Although each person could only choose one, it was enough. Moreover, Murongyu now had the Chaos Blade for attack and the Shadow Step Palace for defense. Therefore, the origin artifacts were ignored again. Murongyu, this bottle contains soul-burning heavenly silk spring water. It has a great tempering effect on the soul. I suggest you choose this one. Just as Murongyu was comparing the treasures, the Roan family big shot's voice sounded in his ears. Murongyu faintly nodded his head, then looked at the bottle that didn't seem to have any abnormalities. Then, with a thought, he took the bottle into his hand. There were 2 left. When Murongyu was about to choose 2 randomly, he found an origin artifact that looked like a giant axe. This giant axe exuded a fierce aura. It was definitely a top-notch peak creation realm weapon. This origin artifact is a half-step celestial realm origin artifact. Although it's not as powerful as a real celestial realm origin artifact, it's stronger than a top-notch creation realm origin artifact. The Roan family big shot's voice sounded in Murongyu's ears again. If that was all, Murongyu did not look at it at all. There were many origin artifacts of this level in the Rising Sun Dao residence. However, Murongyu still noticed that something was amiss. He could feel that this origin artifact was not so simple. This was because Murong saw a flash of dazzling power on the giant axe just now. That was at least the light of a celestial realm origin artifact. However, the giant axe seemed to be able to conceal it. It cannot be seen at all, if you hadn't caught a glimpse of it. Therefore, Murong chose this origin artifact. As for the others, he, on the other hand, casually chose a heavenly treasure. Then, this matter came to an end. The Rong family's gathering of heroes came to an end. Those outside the top 10 left one after another, sent away from the Rong family. As for those in the top 10, they all stayed because they had time alone with Tianming. The 10th place only had an hour, while the 9th place had 2 hours. Therefore, they all started from the last place. Murong was naturally arranged to be the last. Murong did not study the bottle of soul-burning heavenly silk spring water, nor did he study the giant axe. It was better to study these things after he left. Otherwise, if he caused an earth-shattering scene, it would be hard to say what kind of ending there would be. Murong did not go into seclusion. No one was happier than Rongzhuo. However, Rongzhuo was destined to return empty-handed. Murong still only treated her like a younger sister. However, Rongzhuo clearly knew this as well. She was unyielding, wanting to move Murong. Time passed slowly day by day. On this day, Murong was notified that it was time for him to be alone with Tianming. Under the guidance of the Rong family disciples, Murong entered a large hall. An elegant middle-aged man appeared in Murong sight. At this moment, he was looking at Murong with a smile with his hands behind his back. His eyes were full of admiration. This was a heaven-tier powerhouse. Although Tianming did not give off a powerful aura, he was just like an ordinary person. However, he naturally gave off a charm. There was a huge gap between him and a heaven-tier powerhouse like Skeleton. Moreover, in comparison, Murong felt that Tianming could definitely easily kill Skeleton. Murong was slightly dazed. After a while, he came back to his senses and hurriedly bowed to Tianming. Chapter 2106. Tianming just nodded at Murong and looked at him without saying anything. Wasn't he just a heaven realm powerhouse? Murong wasn't afraid of Tianming to begin with. Therefore, he was also staring at Tianming. With this look, Murong found that something was wrong. Tianming gave people the feeling that he was very powerful, even many times stronger than a newly advanced heaven realm powerhouse Skeleton. However, Murong felt that there was something wrong with this Tianming in front of him. Although he was the same as a normal person, there seemed to be something missing. Anger. Yes, Tianming lacked a strong vitality and vitality. His vitality and vitality were not even as good as those at the peak of the creation realm. Murong suddenly realized, this Tianming shouldn't be Tianming's original body, but just a clone or even a power incarnation. You can tell. At this moment, Tianming suddenly said. Murong nodded and spoke bluntly. Among the 10 people, you are the first to recognize that I am not my original body. The admiration in Tianming's eyes grew stronger. Looking at his posture, he quite admired Murong. Would he accept Murong as his disciple? Murong's expression didn't change. After all, this wasn't anything special. He just recognized Tianming's clone. What was there to be smug about? However, in Tianming's eyes, he admired Murong more and more. After all, in the Milky Way star field, including Skeleton, there were only 11 Heaven Realm powerhouses. Being praised by one of the Heaven Realm powerhouses, shouldn't he feel honored and excited? Murong's goal was to become the Chaos Controller. He definitely wouldn't be complacent just because of a few words of praise from a Heaven Realm powerhouse. In fact, he wasn't interested in this alone time. Murong, your performance is not bad. You have the combat power of a Creation Realm powerhouse at the Insight Realm. Very good. If I'm not wrong, you should be a soul cultivator, right? Murong was shocked, and his body instantly stiffened. His strength and soul had been raised to the extreme. The Blade of Chaos was also ready to strike at any time. As long as Tianming dared to make a move, Murong definitely wouldn't sit still. Even if the other party was a heaven-tier elite, he would still fight to the end. Tianming laughed when he saw Murong Yu's reaction. Then, he slowly said, "You don't have to be nervous. I don't have any other intentions." However, how could Murong Yu not be nervous? Those who knew that he was a soul cultivator, how many of them were truly interested in him? Many people said they weren't interested on the surface, but in the next moment, they immediately turned hostile. There was nothing he could do about it. The allure of a soul cultivator was just too great. Fortunately, not many people knew about Murong Yu's chaotic celestial body physique. Otherwise, no matter how vast the universe was, there would be no place for him. Do you want to know how I know? Zhiruo's soul was so chaotic that even I couldn't do anything about it, but you easily helped her recover. If you weren't a soul cultivator, how could you have that ability? You knew long ago? Murong Yu looked at Tianming with some displeasure. He couldn't help but wonder if Rong Zhiruo had really been captured and turned into a slave. Not to mention Tianming, who was a peak elite in the Milky Way star field. Even if it was the Rong family, how many people in the Milky Way star field dared to touch the Rong family's eldest daughter? Therefore, Murong Yu guessed that Rong Zhiruo definitely hadn't been coincidental. Either the Rong family or Tianming had deliberately sent her over. Tianming didn't deny it. Do you know why I'm called Tianming? Murong Yu shook his head. He had always thought that Tianming was his name. Knowing the heavens and knowing fate. Although I haven't reached that level yet, I still have some ability to deduce the heavenly secrets. Back then, I only deduced that you were Zhiruo's benefactor and could help her. I didn't know you were a soul cultivator. I only discovered this later. Forget it. That's all in the past. Now you have 10 days. If there's anything you don't understand about cultivation, take the time to ask. Tianming waved his hand and told Murong Yu to hurry up and start. After all, 10 days would pass in the blink of an eye. As for cultivation, Murong Yu actually didn't need it. There were countless inherited cultivation methods in the Rising Sun Dao Mansion. Among them were the cultivation experiences of many elites throughout their lives. A large amount of experience gathered together would definitely surpass Tianming's cultivation experience. Most importantly, those elites of the Celestial Realm were all at the peak of the Celestial Realm, far surpassing Tianming, who was only at the first level of the Celestial Realm. What's the realm above the Celestial Realm? In the endless starry sky, what's the highest realm? Murong Yu pondered for a moment and asked. Of course, he knew that the Chaos Controller was the strongest in the Chaos, the highest realm. But there was only one Chaos Controller. He meant to ask about the highest realm below the Chaos Controller. Tianming was stunned and looked at Murong Yu with a surprised gaze. As soon as the others entered the room, they would seize the opportunity to ask about cultivation matters. Yet, Murong Yu was asking about unimportant matters? However, since Murong Yu asked, he could only answer. Legend has it that above the Celestial Realm is the true Self Realm. What's the true Self Realm? Returning to one's true self, returning to one's natural state. Returning to one's true self? Returning to one's natural state? Then, was the Chaos Controller above the true Self Realm? Murong Yu thought in his heart, but he said, how many elites of the true Self Realm are there in the endless starry sky? How many elites of the Celestial Realm are there? Tianming looked at Murong Yu with a bitter smile. Kid, are you here to ask questions or to embarrass me? What's the endless starry sky? The starry sky is endless. Cultivators are as numerous as the sand in the Ganges. Who knows? Our Milky Way star zone is very big, right? But it's just a small star zone in the endless starry sky. There are more and more powerful star zones outside our Milky Way star zone. In those star zones, elites of the Celestial Realm are as numerous as dogs. There must be many elites of the true Self Realm, right? Tianming said, and suddenly shook his head, a flash of embarrassment flashing across his face. He had just said that elites of the Celestial Realm were as numerous as dogs. Did that mean that he was one of those dogs? A flash of understanding flashed across Murong Yu's mind. The Milky Way star zone was very big, but compared to the endless starry sky, how similar was it to the solar system? It was just a bigger solar system, layer by layer, from the countryside to the small town and then to the city. In front of the bigger city, the small city became the countryside again. Are there really only a few elites of the celestial realm in the Milky Way star zone? Is the chi of heaven and earth in the Milky Way star zone not enough to support the emergence of more elites of the celestial realm? Or what? The chi of heaven and earth is only one aspect. The main reason is that there are no more powerful inheritances. You must be wondering why we don't go out of the Milky Way star zone and go to a bigger star zone. People who go out of small cities like us will only be looked down upon. If we go to a bigger star zone, we won't have a foothold at all. Instead of being at the bottom of other galaxies, it's better to be above everyone in the Milky Way star zone. Tianming said helplessly. Muron, you clearly saw a flash of unwillingness in the depths of his eyes. Although it was said that the elites of the celestial realm could dominate the Milky Way star zone, as a cultivator who didn't want to become stronger, to have greater strength? Well, since you asked so much, I won't hide it. I just told you that I know a little about the mysteries of heaven. I know that you will definitely rush out of the Milky Way star zone in the future and even become the overlord of the endless starry sky. So, I have to build a good relationship with you before you rise. Tianming's purpose was actually to curry favor with Morongyu. If this was heard by others, they would definitely be scared to death. Tianming was in the celestial realm, and Murongyu was only in the 4th level of the insight realm. Tianming actually wanted to curry favor with Morongyu? What kind of joke was this? However, Morongyu was not surprised. If Tianming could really deduce the mysteries of heaven, it was definitely the best time for him to put down his pride and befriend him. To befriend Morongyu, he needed to put down his pride and dignity as a celestial realm elite. But to kill Morongyu and possess him, he didn't need to. However, Tianming chose the former and not the latter, which made Morongyu quite impressed. Tianming was definitely a talent who knew when to yield and when to stand tall. Maybe I'll die later. Morongyu directly condensed a chair with his power, then sat down and said with a smile, "If you leave the Milky Way star zone, I can't guarantee anything. But in the Milky Way star zone, no one dares to touch you." Tianming's eyes flashed with a cold light. He was going to protect Morongyu. Well, as long as you protect the solar system for me and stop other celestial realm elites from attacking me before I reach the celestial realm, I guarantee that you will be greatly rewarded. If I'm not wrong, your original body is trying to break through the 2nd level of the celestial realm, but you can't get in, right? I can help you. You can really help me? I could do all that you said. Tianming's face flashed with surprise. He had been stuck at the peak of the 1st level of the celestial realm for a long time. In the process, he also tried to break through to the 2nd level of the celestial realm, but he couldn't get in. If he could successfully break through, then he would be the most powerful celestial realm elite in the Milky Way star zone. Now that he heard that Morongyu could help him, how could he not be excited? Don't be so excited. Even if I can help you, now is not the time. I don't have the ability now. However, I got a pill formula that should be helpful to you. Morongyu pondered for a moment, then asked Tianming about a few heaven and earth treasures. The pill formula that Morongyu got, the celestial pill, was of great use to celestial realm cultivators. However, the herbs needed were also very precious and precious. Among the dozens of heaven and earth treasures, Tianming only had one, and the quantity was not much, only enough to refine one pill. There were even some heaven and earth treasures that Tianming had never heard of. If this pill can really help me break through, then I'll be responsible for finding the herbs. Tianming was excited. Morongyu nodded. I need to have celestial realm combat power to refine the celestial pill. But if there are no accidents, it won't take long for me to reach celestial realm combat power. So, you need to get those heaven and earth treasures as soon as possible. Chapter 2107. 10 days later, Morongyu left the hall. During these 10 days, Morongyu and Tianming had a discussion about cultivation. It was true that Morongyu had benefited a lot from Tianming. However, Some of Morong Yu's unique insights had enlightened Tianming. There were many things that Tianming hadn't been able to fully comprehend in the past, but after hearing Morong Yu's words, Tianming suddenly felt enlightened. In these 10 days, Tianming had benefited from Morong Yu several times more than what Morong Yu had gained from him. Tianming could even feel that before the conversation with Morong Yu, his chances of breaking through to the second level of the celestial realm were 1%. However, after the conversation with Morong Yu, his chances of breaking through to a higher level had increased to 10% or even 20%. One could only imagine how great the benefits he had gained were. If he had the pills that Morong Yu had refined for him, Tianming would definitely be able to break through to the next level. This made Tianming look forward to it even more, and he believed that Morong Yu would reach a higher level in the future. Surpassing the celestial realm and reaching the true self realm was not a dream at all. The more this was the case, the more Tianming was determined to build a good relationship with Morong Yu. As the saying goes, even chickens and dogs can ascend to the heavens. Whether or not he could reach a higher level would depend on Morong Yu in the future. Therefore, the moment Morong Yu left the hall, the news that he had become Tianming's disciple had spread throughout the Rong family, and then the entire Milky Way star field. If Morong Yu was a genius on the 100 Talents list, he would definitely be in the top 5 now. His background was terrifying. His potential was also terrifying. He had even stolen Luan Ruiming's token. How many people on the 100 Talents list were as terrifying as Morong Yu? Join the 100 Talents list. After Morong Yu left the hall, a smile appeared on his face. Back in the main hall, Tianming had explained the matter of the 100 Talents list to Morong Yu in detail. Apart from the benefits that Yu Hufeng had mentioned, there were even greater benefits to joining the list. Soon, the top 10 of the 100 Talents list would follow the 10 Destiny Realm experts to explore a world left behind by a fallen True Self Realm expert. That was a world left behind by a True Self Realm expert. In addition to the inheritances and cultivation methods left behind by the True Self Realm expert, there might be other enormous forces in there as well. There were only 20 spots. Apart from Skeleton, the top 10 of the Talents list, and the top 100 Talents list. If Morong Yu wanted to enter, he would have to first become a genius on the 100 Talents list, or even make it into the top 10. As for Morong Yu becoming Tianming's disciple. In reality, Morong Yu hadn't formally become Tianming's disciple. Although Tianming wanted to take Morong Yu as his disciple, he didn't dare to. The reason why he announced this was to build momentum for Morong Yu. Because he was a Destiny disciple, the other Celestial Realm experts would not dare to attack Morong Yu directly. The identity of a Destiny disciple also made Morong Yu's background terrifying. It would help his ranking on the 100 Talents list. Otherwise, even if he could defeat Luan Ruiming, he would not be able to enter the top 10 of the list. To become a genius on the 100 Talents list, one had to go to the Tianji Palace and be recognized by the Tianji Palace. The Tianji Palace was a mysterious existence. It was said to be an organization formed by the top 10 Celestial Realm experts. Morong Yu had asked Tianming this question, but Tianming had only shook his head. No one knew where the headquarters of the Tianji Palace was. Usually, the Tianji Palace branch in the center of the Milky Way star field recognized the 100 Talents list. However, because they did not know where the Tianji Palace was, the cultivators of the Milky Way star field called it the Tianji Palace. With my current strength, even with Tianming's terrifying background, I'm afraid I won't be able to enter the top 10 of the 100 Talents list. Anyway, there's still a year before Tianming and the others go to explore the great world left behind by the True Self Realm experts. I might as well improve my strength first. As Morong Yu pondered, his figure flickered and disappeared from where he stood. Shenyang Dao Mansion. Morong Yu was directly transported to the Shenyang Dao Mansion and began to cultivate. Morong Yu did not have any bottlenecks in comprehension now. As long as he had enough power, his physical body and cultivation would break through. In the Shenyang Dao Mansion, there was no lack of origin crystals, which contained a huge amount of energy. After half a year, his cultivation broke through again and reached the 5th level of the insight realm. After his cultivation, his physical body also broke through. He also reached the 5th level of the insight realm. However, his soul had stagnated at a standstill. It could not be helped. Crystals could improve his cultivation and physical body, but they could not improve his soul. However, Moronyu had nothing to worry about. He took out the bottle of soul-burning heavenly silk spring water that was rewarded by the Rong family hero gathering. According to Tian Ming, this bottle of soul-burning heavenly silk spring water was specially given to Moronyu. Only Moronyu could use this bottle of spring water. Although soul-burning heavenly silk spring water had the effect of tempering the soul. However, if the soul was not strong enough, it would be directly refined into powder. Therefore, even though Tian Ming had obtained this bottle of good stuff long ago, he did not dare to use it. If the physical body was refined, it could be recovered. However, if the soul was gone, it would be gone forever. The bottle was not big, but there was another space inside. After Moronyu probed it with his divine thought, he found that the amount of soul-burning heavenly silk spring water inside was almost as much as a pool. It was equivalent to the amount of primeval essence that he and Yu Hufeng had absorbed on the Moon Mask Beast Planet. After a little perception, Moronyu found that this soul-burning heavenly silk spring water did have a huge tempering effect on the soul. However, the side effects were also very terrifying. Opportunity and danger coexisted. Moronyu gritted his teeth and poured a large pool of soul-burning heavenly silk spring water into the soul space. Then, Muronyu's main soul also returned to the soul space from the Hichu Luoshu and jumped into the soul-burning heavenly silk spring water with a plop. Immediately, Moronyu could not help but let out a shrill scream. In fact, his entire body was trembling violently from the intense pain. Previously, he only sensed that this soul-burning heavenly silk spring water had great side effects on the soul. Now that he had personally tried it, he personally experienced what it meant to burn the soul. His entire soul felt as if it was being burned and roasted by raging flames, causing incomparable pain. Even with Muronyu's tenacity, he could not help but let out a miserable scream. One could imagine how terrifying this soul burning was. Moreover, the soul-burning heavenly silk spring water was not just about burning the soul. The spring water was also divided into billions of threads, constantly entangling Muronyu's soul, as if it wanted to cut his soul apart. Burn! Cut! How painful was this? It was simply impossible to describe with words. Moronyu only knew that he was about to faint from the pain. However, Moronyu gritted his teeth and persevered. This was because he could clearly see that while his soul was being burned and cut, he was enduring an indescribable pain. However, the strength of his soul had improved. As long as he could endure it, his soul would become stronger and stronger, and even break through to the 5th stage of the Netherworld Insight stage in one go. And if he couldn't endure it and fainted, then he would never be able to wake up again. His soul had been burned and cut into powder, so how could he still wake up? Thus, no matter if he wanted to improve his soul's level or if he didn't want to die, Moronyu had to grit his teeth and persevere. Time continued to pass, and Moronyu's body was still trembling violently. A stream had already appeared beneath him. All of this was his sweat. Sweat flowed like a river. This was what it meant. In the end, the space where Moronyu was it rippled along with the trembling of Moronyu's body. One could imagine how terrifying the pain he was enduring was. A month later, the trembling caused by the intense pain on Moronyu's body gradually weakened and finally disappeared. The instant it disappeared, Moronyu's eyes, which had been tightly shut, abruptly opened. 5th stage of the Netherworld Insight stage. A bright light flickered in Moronyu's eyes, and he instantly released his strongest combat strength. Rumble. The space he was in immediately exploded. If the heavens were here, they would discover that Moronyu's combat strength had already reached the terrifying level of the 8th level of the creation realm. He was only a step away from the 9th level of the creation realm. Originally, I could kill an opponent of the 8th level of the creation realm. Now, even if I meet an expert of Ku Qingwan's level, with the Blade of Chaos, the power of Shadow Step, Soul Attack, Power of Faith, and the 9 Words Mantra, I can also kill him. No cultivator below the Heaven Realm can kill me anymore. Murong Yu's eyes flickered, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. Other than Murong Yu, no one knew what Murong Yu's breakthrough meant. Soul-burning heavenly silk spring water not only allowed his soul realm to break through, reaching the 5th level of the insight realm, it also made his temperament even more tenacious. At the same level, his soul attack was also a bit stronger than before. Don't look at it as just a bit. Sometimes, even a bit stronger could reverse the situation of the battle. After stabilizing his cultivation, Murong Yu left the Rising Sun Dao Mansion and returned to the Rong family. Now was the time to go to the mysterious Heavenly Palace for certification. He didn't break through to the 5th level of the Insight Realm. Because there was no need, his combat strength wouldn't increase by much. On the contrary, because his cultivation realm was higher, it would make his potential look not great enough. In this way, his ranking on the 100 Talents list wouldn't be higher. What Murong Yu wanted to do was to raise his ranking on the 100 Talents list as much as possible. It would be best if he could trample Wan Weiming under his feet and directly reach the first place of the 100 Talents list. This was not a dream. With Murong Yu's current combat strength, potential, and background, it was completely possible. Chapter 2108. Big Brother Murong, where have you been these past few days? I had thought you'd already left the Rong family. Just when Murong Yu bid farewell to Tian Ming and was about to leave the Rong family, Rong Zhuo suddenly appeared before him. Murong Yu was taken aback. He had purposefully avoided Rong Zhuo originally. This was because he knew Rong Zhuo was slightly interested in him, but Murong Yu could never accept Rong Zhuo. As a result, he purposefully distanced himself from Rong Zhuo now. After all, he did not want to hurt Rong Zhuo, and the deeper Rong Zhuo fell, the greater the harm would be. Originally, it was impossible for Rong Zhuo to know Murong Yu had returned. However, Murong Yu had only seen Tian Ming's clone since his return. In other words, Tian Ming had told Rong Zhuo, that wily old fox. Murong Yu inwardly gnashed his teeth in anger. Without even thinking, he knew Tian Ming had contacted Rong Zhuo. Tian Ming's intentions were very clear. He wanted to curry favor with Murong Yu and create an opportunity for him to get on Murong Yu's good side. However, he could not accept Murong Yu as his disciple either. It was even more impossible for him to take him on as his master. As a result, the only person who could close the distance between him and Murong Yu was Rong Zhuo. As long as Rong Zhuo became Murong Yu's woman, wouldn't the Rong family and Tian Ming become family with Murong Yu? Although this relationship could not be compared to a master-disciple relationship, it was still relatively close. As a result, when Murong Yu left the hall, he notified Rong Zhuo. I've only been cultivating recently. All right, I need to go to the Heavenly Secrets Palace right now to be verified. I'm in a hurry, so I'll be leaving first. Murong Yu explained and was about to flee. However, Rong Zhuo grabbed his arm. I knew you were going to the Heavenly Secret Palace a long time ago. I just happened to want to go take a look at the Heavenly Secrets Palace too. So let's go together. Murong Yu held his forehead with both hands as he cursed Tian Ming in his heart. At the same time, it was only now that Murong Yu discovered that Rong Zhuo's cultivation level had actually already charged to the 8th level of the Genesis tier after not seeing her for almost a year. This speed even surpassed that of Murong Yu. This made him quite speechless. However, Rong Zhuo was doted on, so it was perfectly normal for her cultivation to rise quickly. I'm going for the certification too. I heard that becoming a member of the 100 Talents ranking is quite fun, Rong Zhuo said with a smile. Murong Yu was helpless. If Rong Zhuo really went to take part in the examination, then she would definitely make it into the ranking of 100 Talents. After all, Rong Zhuo's background was very terrifying. In addition, her talent was not bad in the first place, and her combat strength was not bad either. Murong believed that once Rong Zhuo entered the ranking of 100 talents, she would definitely be ranked at the top. In the end, Murong still took Rong Zhuo with him and left the Rong family, heading toward the occult palace. After leaving the Rong family, Murong vaguely sensed that someone was secretly following him. At first, he thought that it was those people with ulterior motives who wanted to ambush him. Only later did he realize that those people were definitely powerhouses of the Rong family, sent to protect Rong Zhuo. Presumably, when he was in the solar system, the Rong family also had powerhouses secretly following him, right? It was just that his strength was really not that great back then, so he could not discover those people. Murong was currently in the limelight in the Milky Way star field, and his popularity was very high. Discussions about him could be heard everywhere. However, his background and strength could only suppress a portion of people. There was still a considerable portion of people who did not care about him. For example, Wan Ruiming, Fan Yubing, and the others. As for Rong Zhuo, she was the young miss of the Rong family, and countless people had designs on her. Therefore, after leaving the Rong family, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Murong and Rong Zhuo both changed their appearances. Murong was one thing. He looked like an ordinary youth who couldn't be any more ordinary. However, although Rong Zhuo changed her appearance, she was still a stunning beauty. This made Murong rather speechless. They had changed their appearances to avoid trouble in the first place. However, although they had changed their original appearances, Rong Zhuo would definitely encounter a lot of trouble with her current appearance. For a beauty, no matter how she changed her appearance, she would never become uglier than her original self. She would only become more beautiful. This was what Rong Zhuo said to Murong, and Murong directly ignored it. Because they were not using their original selves, they could only travel like ordinary cultivators. They constantly used origin crystals to pave the way, passing through countless transmission formations, crossing galaxy after galaxy, and going through untold hardships, finally arriving at the Tianji Galaxy. The Tianji Galaxy. It was said that this galaxy was not originally called this. However, because of the Tianji Palace, it was later renamed the Tianji Galaxy. The Tianji Galaxy was located in the central region of the Milky Way star field. Moreover, because of the mysterious Tianji Palace, this place was very lively. There were countless cultivators, however. This place was also a mix of good and bad. There were people from all walks of life. However, Rong Zhuo was very strong. Although a level 9 Genesis realm was not the top existence in the Milky Way star field, she was still considered an expert. Therefore, no one dared to provoke her. At most, they would secretly take a few glances and then secretly swallow their saliva. Murong and Rong Zhuo headed straight for where the Tianji Palace was. This was because the time for the top 10 heaven-tier elites to enter the great world of true self-realm elites was not far. There were only 10 days' time. Murong had to charge into the top 10 of the 100 talents list within 10 days. Otherwise, he would not be able to follow Tianming. Who is it? Murong had just stepped onto the Tianji Mountain, where the Tianji Palace was when a level 9 Genesis realm elite stepped out, blocking in front of Murong. I am Murong, here to participate in the certification of the Tianji Palace. Murong clasped his fists at the other party. As he spoke, his face kept changing until it returned to its original appearance. Beside him, Rong Zhuo also returned to her original appearance. Originally, Murong and Rong Zhuo thought that after they reported their names and returned to their original appearances, that person would lead them up. However, the reaction they received made them extremely furious. Certification? How can the certification of the 100 talents list be something that just any Tom, Dick, or Harry can certify? If any Tom, Dick, or Harry comes to certify, wouldn't our Tianji Palace be busy? Go back to where you came from. The Tianji Palace disciple waved at Murong and Rong Zhuo impatiently and disdainfully, wanted to chase them away. What the hell? Who do you think you are? Can you represent the Tianji Palace? Rongzhuo immediately flew into a rage. She lost her temper as a young lady and let loose a torrent of abuse at the Tianji Palace disciple. The Tianji Palace disciple stared at Rongzhuo with an extremely sunken expression. A smear of cold, killing intent flashed through the depths of his eyes. At the same time, he threw a punch at Rongzhuo. Sensing the killing intent in the depths of the other party's eyes, a cold light flashed through Murongyu's eyes. The Tianji Palace he had heard of was not like this. However, no matter what the people of the Tianji Palace were like, this person actually wanted to kill them. This made him feel intense, killing intent. With a single step, he had already blocked in front of Rongzhuo. Rongzhuo was only at the world creation realm. However, this disciple of the Tianji Palace was at the 9th level of the world creation realm. He was a minor cultivation level stronger than Rongzhuo. Even if Rongzhuo was powerful enough to rival 9th level world creation realm experts. However, what if something unexpected happened? She had been brought out by Murongyu. Murongyu did not want anything to happen to her. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The Tianji Palace disciple could not help but snort disdainfully when he saw how a mere netherworld creation realm expert like Murongyu dared to block him. However, the force in his hand did not decrease at all. Killing intent surged in Murongyu's heart. If it were any other 5th level netherworld creation realm cultivator, this Tianji Palace disciple's punch would definitely be able to blast them to smithereens. They would be deader than dead. Since the other party wanted to kill him, Murongyu had nothing more to say. He would kill whoever wanted to kill him first. The power of the shadow trample was suddenly activated. Murongyu stomped heavily on the Tianji Palace disciple shadow. Immediately, the Tianji Palace disciple was immobilized. With a thought, the blade of chaos had already appeared in Murongyu's hand. Afterwards, he swung the blade forcefully. The Tianji Palace disciple's heart was immediately enveloped by an extremely powerful aura of death. He wanted to struggle, but he discovered that his physical body and strength had been imprisoned. He was unable to move at all. Meanwhile, the blade of chaos carried a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth and had already slashed down fiercely. At this moment, the Tianji Palace disciple was filled with regret. Why did he look down on the two of them? Why did he have to vent on them? Was this not good? He was about to be killed by the other party. Show mercy. The Tianji Palace disciple was about to be killed by Murongyu's blade. Right at this moment, a loud roar came from behind. At the same time, a large hand swept across the endless void and grabbed the blade of chaos in Murongyu's hand. Boom! The blade of chaos was directly sent flying. Murongyu's figure was also forced to stop a few steps. In terms of combat strength, Murongyu had only reached the 8th level of the creation realm. There was still a huge gap from the 9th level of the creation realm. After Murongyu retreated, he was naturally unable to continue stepping on the Tianji Palace disciple's shadow. As a result, that person regained control of his physical body at the first moment. Dying. A cold light flashed through that person's eyes. With a roar, he gathered extreme strength and charged towards Murongyu. Murongyu's heart sank, and the killing intent in his eyes skyrocketed. Junior Brother Zhou, stop. It was still the voice from before. A large hand suddenly reached out and grabbed the Tianji Palace disciple, surnamed Zhou's shoulder. Very clearly, the person who repelled Murongyu was much stronger than this person, surnamed Zhou. After the disciple, surnamed Zhou's shoulder was grabbed, his attacks could not continue. The storm-like attacks were stopped by the person who appeared from behind, vanishing into nothingness. Oof. Rongzhuo's pretty face was pale from fright earlier. Now that she reacted, she looked coldly at the disciple surnamed Zhou, seething with killing intent. That person surnamed Zhou actually wanted to kill her and Murongyu. He was simply courting death. She was Tianming's most favored junior, and Murongyu was Tianming's disciple. As long as she invited Tianming, she could annihilate everyone in the Tianji Palace. Chapter 2109. The one who repelled Murong Yu and suppressed the attack of the Heavenly Mystery Palace disciple surnamed Zhou was a youth who looked to be about 25 or 26 years old. He also had the battle prowess of a level 9 Genesis Realm cultivator. However, it seemed that he was much stronger than that disciple surnamed Zhou. Senior brother Zhao. Seeing the person who came, disciple surnamed Zhou finally became well-behaved. However, he still glared fiercely at Murong Yu before returning and bowing respectfully to that disciple, surnamed Zhao. Murong Yu clearly saw a hint of fear flash through the depths of disciple, surnamed Zhou's eyes. This meant that disciple surnamed Zhao was not only powerful, but his status was also much higher than his. Disgrace scrammed to the side. I'll settle the score with you later. Disciple Zhao glared at disciple surnamed Zhou and berated him. Disciple surnamed Zhou glared fiercely at Murong Yu, then snorted coldly and quickly left with a look of unwillingness. However, Murong Yu discovered a flash of intense, killing intent in his eyes. If he dares to make a move, he'll definitely die next time. Murong Yu thought to himself. He would definitely not let off people who wanted to kill him. If there was a chance, he would definitely strike first to gain the upper hand. I'm Zhao Hongxian, a disciple of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. The two of you are the geniuses who came to participate in the test, right? That junior brother Zhou of mine has suffered a blow in his life recently, so he made some mistakes. Please forgive me. After chasing away disciple, surnamed Zhou, Zhao Hongxian came in front of Murong Yu and cupped his fist to the two of them and said apologetically. Since the other party greeted him with a smile, Murong Yu did not fuss over it. Hence, he smiled and said that it was fine. Of course, whether it was really fine, only Murong Yu himself knew. Immediately, Zhao Hongxian led the way in front, bringing Murong Yu and the other up. Zhao Hongshuan's status in the Heavenly Mystery Palace was obviously not low. Along the way, no one came to find trouble with Murong Yu. At the same time, when the disciples of the occult Mystery Palace saw Zhao Hongxian, they respectfully called him Senior Brother Zhao. Every day, there are people coming for the certification, so I can't certify the two of you today. As for the specific time, I still have to see how the arrangements are made. I'm really sorry. Zhao Hongxian led Murong Yu and Yi Xuan to a courtyard, and then took his leave. However, before he left, he still gave Murong Yu and Jian Wushuang 2 jade slips. Inside the jade slip was the certification method and precautions. The method of certification was very simple. It was a series of tests and background checks. The backgrounds of Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo would probably be investigated by the occult palace very soon. Therefore, Murong Yu directly skipped this beat and observed the other steps. Realm. Combat strength, age, comprehension, potential. It was mainly to test this aspect. How to test one's potential. This was something that couldn't be tested at all, but it could be comprehensively reflected in various other aspects. The younger a person was, the more powerful their combat strength was, and the greater their comprehension was, which meant that their potential was greater. For example, a person could possess the battle prowess of the chaotic space realm when they were 100 years old, but another person also possessed the battle prowess of the chaotic space realm when they were only 10 years old. Then, which one had greater potential? Of course, it was the person who was 10 years old. As for age, it was impossible to test his exact age. Even Murong Yu had no idea how old he was. However, age in the endless cosmos was not measured in years, nor was it measured in epochs. Instead, it was measured in samsara realms. Normally speaking, cultivators in 10 samsara realms could be called the younger generation. In terms of youth, Murong Yu definitely had the right to be certified. Murong Yu did not lack cultivation, battle prowess, and comprehension either. As a result, he had never worried about this. He was only curious about how it would proceed. Although there were many people who came to certify every day, Zhao Hongxian came to find Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo early the next morning with a smile on his face. He said they could be tested. Clearly, the Heavenly Mystery Palace had already investigated the identities of the two people. Knowing their terrifying backgrounds, They directly arranged for them to cut the queue and start the test. This was a large hall, and it was packed with people. There were at least tens of thousands of young powerhouses here. These people were all here to take part in the certification test, because only those who took the certification test had the right to enter this hall. Why were there so many people? One had to know that the occult palace was facing the entire Milky Way star field. How many cultivators were there in the Milky Way star field? How many young cultivators were there? Countless of them. There would always be geniuses among the young generation. And some geniuses would even think how amazing they were and want to become famous. But how to become famous? There were many ways to become famous, and the best way was to make it into the 100 Talents list. After making it into the 100 Talents list, one's identity would be recognized by the masses, and there would also be certain benefits. As a result, a large number of so-called young geniuses basically came to take part in the certification test every day. Although basically no one could make it onto the list, with so many people taking part, there would always be someone who would make it onto the 100 Talents list. Level 5 of the Insight Realm. Level 8 of the Genesis Realm. Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo had just stepped into the hall when a lifeless and hard voice rang out. Hearing this, everyone in the hall was first stunned, and then they burst into laughter. What kind of joke is this? Someone at level 5 of the Insight Realm dares to take part in the test. Since when did the occult palace become so absurd? How funny. Who exactly is it? Insight Realm? Isn't this humiliating us? All the geniuses present grumbled unhappily, looking towards Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo at the same time. Rong Zhuo was fine, but she was at level 8 of the Genesis Realm. Perhaps she had the battle prowess of a peak Genesis Realm? As for Murong Yu, he was a joke. Little friend, come play with me. It won't be too late to take part in the test after I defeat you. A young man walked over and stood in front of Murong Yu, looking at Murong Yu disdainfully. Murong Yu turned to look at Zhao Hongxian beside him. Zhao Hongxian nodded slowly. As a result, Murong Yu smiled, and then threw a punch. Boom! That young man had no idea just how terrifying Murong Yu's strength was. Caught off guard, he was sent flying by Murong Yu's punch. In reality, even if he was prepared, the result would have been the same. Moreover, this guy dared to be the first to provoke Murong Yu, so Murong Yu directly treated him as a warning to others. As a result, he was heavily injured by a single punch from Murong Yu. That was a cultivator at level 7 of the Genesis Realm. The faces of the crowd, who were originally looking at Murong Yu with disdain, were now filled with astonishment. Each and every one of them looked at Murong Yu in disbelief. It must have been that woman beside him who did it. A young man roared furiously, leaping out from the crowd and throwing a punch at Murong Yu. Overestimating himself, Murong Yu smiled disdainfully and already sent the other flying with a punch. This time, everyone finally saw clearly. It was not Rong Zhuo who attacked, but Murong Yu. But this guy was only at level 5 of the Insight Realm. Yet his battle prowess was so terrifying, too terrifying. Who was this? His potential was too terrifying. For a moment, everyone only looked at Murong Yu in horror, and no one dared to attack Murong Yu anymore. He could send a level 7 of the Genesis Realm flying with a punch. So perhaps he could send a level 8 of the Genesis Realm flying with a punch, or even a level 9 existence. If they jumped out to find fault, the ones who would lose face in the end would be themselves, and not Murong Yu. Moreover, they had no enmity with Murong Yu, so why would they find fault with him? Previously, it was only because they saw that Murong Yu's cultivation level was too low, and felt that it was an insult to themselves. Now, Murong Yu is even stronger than the majority of them. He was already on the same level as them, or even a higher level than them. Murong Yu walked past, and everyone unconsciously stepped aside. There are many rooms up ahead. You only need to choose one of them. You can test your age and battle prowess in the room. Once you're done, you can leave, Zhao Hongxian said to Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo. Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo nodded. These rooms are all confidential. Aside from the people from our heavenly mystery palace who are in charge of testing and certification, No one else can see what's going on inside. Of course, you can also release all of your authority so that everyone in the hall can see. Why should I release it? Muron-yu had no intention of being watched like a monkey. As a result, he exchanged glances with Rong Zhuo, and then they each chose a room and strode in. Bang! The door immediately closed. This was a room that was not very large. There was another door at the very back of the room. For the time being, Muron-yu still didn't know what the door was for. Swish! Muron-yu only had time to take a good look at the room's furnishings when a white light appeared out of thin air and bombarded him. Muron-yu was just about to dodge, but after thinking about it, he did not dodge in the end, allowing the streak of light to land on him. When the light enveloped Muron-yu, Muron-yu felt energy constantly surge into his body, his flesh, blood, bones, and so on. However, it did not enter the space of his soul. Otherwise, Muron-yu would never have entered and allowed the white light to enter. Once it entered his soul, Muron-yu's secret would be exposed. 2 hours later, the white light that enveloped Muron-yu finally vanished. Muron-yu, less than a tenth of his age, at the rebirth realm. A long time after the white light vanished, a rather hesitant and shocked gaze rang out in Muron-yu's ears. Muron-yu was just too young, a little too young. Although the people who had come for the certification and testing were all young, which one of them had not surpassed the rebirth realm. However, Muron-yu was not even a tenth of his age at the rebirth realm. The reason why they said that was because they were unable to determine Muron-yu's exact age. Presumably, Muron-yu's true age was much younger than what the test revealed. Please move to the next room for the test of battle prowess. After announcing Muron-yu's age, the voice called him to the next room for the test of battle prowess. Chapter 21:10. This was a room about 5 kilometers in size. Apart from a door at the back, which they had just entered, there were no other entrances or exits, and the entire room was also bare with nothing inside. Next is to test your battle prowess. It's very simple. You just need to defeat the puppets that appear. Take note, puppets are emotionless. If you can't hold on, immediately call for help. Otherwise, your life will be in danger. That emotionless voice once again rang out beside Muron-yu's ears. Muron-yu nodded. Whoosh! Just as Muron-yu nodded, a figure appeared in front of him. This was a 5th-level Insight Rel puppet. Muron-yu couldn't help but be speechless. The Heavenly Mystery Palace really didn't know how to be flexible, right? He was only at the 5th level of the Insight Realm, but his battle prowess far surpassed the 5th level of the Insight Realm. Shaking his head, Muron-yu pointed out. With a bang, that 5th level Insight Realm puppet that hadn't even had time to become a rooster was smashed into pieces. Just as the puppet was smashed into pieces, another 2 puppets of the same realm appeared, 3, 4. In the end, even 10,000 puppets appeared at the same time. However, no matter how many puppets of 5th level Insight Realm came, they couldn't withstand Muron-yu's punch. They were all smashed into pieces by his punch. After 10,000 puppets appeared at the same time, no more puppets appeared. Until 2 hours later, a puppet appeared. What was different from before was that this puppet was at the 6th level of the Insight Realm, 7th level of the Insight Realm, 8th level of the Insight Realm. Muron-yu killed all the way, and very soon, the puppets that appeared already reached the 8th level of the Creation Realm. Heavenly Mystery Palace, in another large hall. Some of the big shots of the Heavenly Mystery Palace were all looking at the phantom that appeared in front of the large hall. If Muron-yu was here, he would definitely discover that they were looking at none other than him. Muron-yu's battle prowess is indeed terrifying. He's only at the 5th level of the profound underworld realm, yet he possesses battle prowess at the 8th level of the creation realm. I wonder if he can persevere until he defeats 10,000 puppets with strength at the 8th level of the world creation realm and challenge the battle prowess of the 9th level of the world creation realm. One of the alchemists looked at Muron-yu in amazement. Even if he can't persevere to the end, with his background, age, battle prowess, and potential, he can definitely enter the top 5 of the 100 talents list. If he could defeat 10,000 puppets with strength at the 8th level of the world creation realm, he would definitely be number 1 on the 100 talents list. I'm afraid he's the young man with the most terrifying potential in the Milky Way star field, another big shot said in a deep voice. The other big shots of the mysterious heavenly palace nodded in agreement. I didn't expect a prodigy of this level to appear in such a remote star field like the Milky Way star field. We've really picked up a treasure. Another big shot said with a smile. Haha, if he is willing, we can focus on nurturing him. This shocked those stationed in the other galaxies. He had never had any geniuses that he could bring out, and he had always been ridiculed. We've had enough. I wonder if this kid is willing to join our heavenly mystery palace. Why not? I believe he's willing. After all, who doesn't want to become stronger? None of you can snatch him from me. After his test, I'll talk to him personally, a big shot said with a smile, looking like he was bursting with joy. On the other side, Muronyu looked at the 5,000 puppets with strength at the 8th level of the world creation realm that appeared out of thin air in front of him, his face still full of ease. The strength of the puppets was very strong, about the same as a true 8th level of the world creation realm cultivator. However, Muronyu's current battle prowess could already kill a 9th level of the world creation realm cultivator. Therefore, even if there were more puppets with strength at the 8th level of the world creation realm, he had nothing to fear. With the heaven-tier step shadow palace above his head, Muronyu held the blade of chaos in his hand, and with one step, he had already charged into the group of puppets. The blade of chaos in his hand gushed out power like a torrent, and he slashed out with his blade. Pooh! Dozens of puppets were directly chopped into pieces. At the same time, the 9 words mantra was also blasted out by Muronyu. The power of time rule, space rule, and so on burst out, and hundreds of 8th level of the world creation realm puppets were minced into fine powder. And the puppets' attacks only landed on the step of Shadow Palace. Although it consumed Muronyu's soul power intensely, it was unable to harm Muronyu. Moreover, these puppets didn't have souls at all. Otherwise, Muronyu would have thrown a soul storm over long ago. 5,000 puppets weren't enough for his soul storm to kill. However, although the soul had no place to be used, it was good to use the step of Shadow Palace as a defense. Under his charge, the 5,000 puppets were quickly chopped into pieces by him. However, 5,001 puppets appeared out of thin air again, not giving Muronyu any time to rest at all. Muronyu could only fight again. In the middle of the great battle, Muronyu couldn't help but let out a long howl. This kind of battle was very refreshing. Muronyu had never encountered such a situation where their strength was on par with his, but there were many of them. In the great battle, Muronyu's combat experience became more and more abundant. He became more proficient in every attack, especially the Blade of Chaos. It became more and more convenient. In the end, Muronyu simply gave up on using the Step of Shadow Palace and no longer relied on treasures to defend. The result of this was that Muronyu began to be injured. However, without relying on treasures, the increase in his combat strength and combat experience was even more terrifying. Finally, Muronyu successfully persevered until 10,008th level world creation realm puppets appeared. As long as he defeated these 10,000 puppets, then Muronyu could face the 9th level world creation realm puppets. I'm really looking forward to it. Muronyu isn't the first genius in the Milky Way star field to persevere here. However, he is the first peerless genius to persevere here at the Insight Realm. Compared to Luan Ruiming and the others in Muronyu, it's simply heaven and earth. In the main hall of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, the big shots of the Heavenly Mystery Palace looked at Muronyu, who was undergoing the test, and were incomparably excited. 10,008th level World Creation Realm puppets are still beyond the scope of my ability. After a round of battle, after Muronyu killed hundreds of puppets, his figure suddenly retreated. However, this room was only 10 miles in size. Where could he retreat to? The entire room was filled with puppets. However, Muronyu didn't really want to retreat. He was just temporarily avoiding the spearhead. As he retreated or shifted, he continued to attack and kill the puppets one by one. The fewer puppets there were, the lighter the pressure on him. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many puppets, Muronyu wouldn't have to dodge at all, but would directly resist their attacks. In fact, Muronyu had already sent out the Step of Shadow Palace again. However, he didn't use the power of Step of Shadow and the power of Faith, because there was no need for it for the time being. Those trump cards that belonged to him, he didn't want to expose them in front of others, unless it was a situation where he had no choice. One puppet after another was continuously killed, and the pressure on Muronyu became smaller and smaller. Finally, he started to take the initiative to attack. After a round of frenzied attacks, all the puppets were killed cleanly. However, after killing these puppets, only then did Muronyu discover that his soul force had at least consumed 1/5 of it. This was still under the situation where the 3 soul spheres replenished a large amount of soul force at any time. If 10,000 ninth level world creation realm puppets attacked, Muronyu wouldn't be a match at all, unless he activated the power of Step of Shadow. However, puppets didn't have souls, so his soul force had no place to use it, and he was also unable to do large-scale damage. Whoosh! Seeing that Muronyu successfully killed 10,000 8th level world creation realm puppets, the big shots of the Heavenly Mystery Palace in the main hall all heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that they were even more nervous than Muronyu. Muronyu's ranking on the 100 Talents list is definitely first place now. It's just that I wonder if he'll continue to challenge? A big shot said with interest. I think this brat seems to still have some trump card that he hasn't used yet. Just as the many big shots of the Heavenly Mystery Palace were in the same round, Muronyu had already exited the testing room and reappeared in the main hall. I wonder if this guy can pass the test. What rank will he be on the 100 Talents list? Seeing Muronyu reappear, the people in the main hall all started discussing animatedly. Muronyu didn't pay any attention to these people. Instead, he stood in a corner of the hall and closed his eyes to rest. In reality, he could already leave. After all, the final result would only be announced by the Heavenly Mystery Palace a day later. He was only here to wait for Rongzhua. The reason why he didn't continue to challenge 9th level World Creation Realm puppets was because he felt that it was already enough. If he continued to challenge, he might be able to defeat a few 9th level World Creation Realm puppets, but he wouldn't be able to persist for too long. Rather than exposing his trump card and not achieving much, he might as well stop here. After all, he felt that his current results were already enough. At least, charging into the top 5 of the 100 Talents list was completely no problem. Half a day later, Rongzhua also appeared in the main hall with a smile on her face. Then, Muronyu and Rongzhua left the main hall. Big Brother Muron, do you have the confidence to charge to the top of the 100 Talents list this time? Rongzhua asked with a smile. Muronyu rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Let's talk about you first. Do you have the confidence to charge into the top 10? Rongzhua immediately rolled her eyes at Muronyu. I'm already secretly happy to be able to enter the 100 Talents list. Top 10? I don't have that ability. Swoosh! Just as they were chatting and laughing as they walked towards their temporary lodgings, a figure appeared out of thin air in front of them, blocking their path. Muronyu, I'm Yin Jingtian, an elder of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. I wonder if you're interested in talking with me? Yin Jingtian looked at Muronyu with a smile, his eyes full of praise. He was one of many big shots in the Heavenly Mystery Palace's main hall. Not long after Muronyu's test, he personally came to look for him. This sincerity was enough. A hint of doubt flashed across Muronyu's eyes. He had never heard of such a thing. The big shots of the Heavenly Mystery Palace were all incredibly mysterious. They usually didn't appear at all, so why did they suddenly appear now? Could it be that they were stunned by his terrifying potential? Muronyu pondered and couldn't help feeling a little narcissistic. Chapter 2111. In the end, Muronyu still followed Yin Jingtian to a mountain peak of the Tianji Palace. Yin Jingtian's palace was on this mountain peak. Muronyu, why did you join the list of 100 Talents? Yin Jingtian suddenly asked a question that didn't seem to be a question. Of course, it's for the benefits of the list of 100 talents. Muronyu blinked and said without hesitation. Yin Jingtian was stunned. He originally thought that Muronyu would say some noble reasons, but he didn't expect Muronyu to be so straightforward. However, if Murongyu's purpose was so simple, Yin Jingtian laughed in his heart, feeling that his plot had succeeded. Actually, these benefits of the list of 100 talents are nothing. Yin Jingtian pretended not to care and said, Muronyu acted surprised at the right time. Are there other benefits? Yin Jingtian nodded. Of course. When he said this, he stopped and didn't continue. He just looked at Muronyu, as if he wanted to arouse Murongyu's curiosity. However, Murongyu's reaction was so calm, which was very different from his imagination. Finally, after a while, Yin Jingtian said gloomily, Muronyu, aren't you interested? I'm very interested. I'm waiting for you to say it, Muronyu said with a smile. However, Yin Jingtian really couldn't see why Muronyu was interested. In fact, Muronyu was really not very interested. After all, he had the Xinyang Taoist mansion. What treasures didn't he have? The Tianji Palace had many treasures and benefits. But how many could it give him? Instead of competing with others to get a few treasures, it was better to use the time to cultivate. Yin Jingtian was quite depressed. If it were other people, they would have fainted from excitement after hearing his words. However, Muronyu was so calm and not interested at all. This made Yin Jingtian suspect whether this guy was too careless or did not care at all. However, who in a Milky Way star field did not care about the mysterious Sky Palace? Unless they were not from the Milky Way. But even outside the Milky Way star field, the Tianji Palace was still a terrifying existence. How many people could not become a disciple of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, even if they broke their heads? Muronyu, the Heavenly Mystery Palace is not a power from the Milky Way star field. Our Heavenly Mystery Palace is considered a colossus in the endless starry sky. We have a branch in almost every star field. The Tianji Palace of the Milky Way star field is just one of the countless branches of the Tianji Palace in the Milky Way star field. Murongyu's potential was too terrifying. Yin Jingtian would definitely not lose such a genius. He had to get Muronyu into the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Murongyu's expression finally changed, but he quickly regained his composure. So, what does this have to do with me? It has a lot to do with it. As long as you become a disciple of our Heavenly Mystery Palace, with your potential, you will definitely get the focus of our Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters. At that time, your achievements will definitely not be limited to the Celestial Realm. You will definitely reach the True Self Realm. And if you stay in the Milky Way star field to develop, the Celestial Realm will probably be your limit. Yin Jingtian explained to Muronyu without hesitation. What level of power is the mysterious Sky Palace? Muronyu pondered for a moment. To be honest, he was also a little moved. If the mysterious Sky Palace really covered the entire endless starry sky, joining this power would also be beneficial. This you don't need to know for the time being. But you only need to know that our mysterious Sky Palace is a colossus in the endless starry sky. If you are willing to join our mysterious Sky Palace, you will become the focus of our Milky Way starfield's branch. This is something that our elders have discussed. There will definitely be no change. Moreover, we will also recommend you to the headquarters to receive the focus of the headquarters training. Yin Jingtian said, and couldn't help but be a little excited. Once Muronyu reached the True Self Realm, or even a higher realm, then their Milky Way starfield's branch could also hold their heads high in front of other galaxies' branches. Moreover, finding such a peerless genius for the headquarters would also reward them greatly. Perhaps they could be transferred back to the headquarters? The most important thing was that after Muronyu became strong in the future, he would also be a member of their Milky Way starfield's branch. As the saying goes, when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. Due to various reasons, Yin Jingtian found Muronyu at the first moment. He wanted to try his best to pull Muronyu over. Muronyu rolled his eyes. I don't know anything. What if your mysterious sky palace is some evil organization? Then wouldn't I have joined a pirate ship? Yen Jingtian almost sent Murong Yu flying with a slap. How is the mysterious sky palace an evil organization? And even boarded a pirate ship. If the mysterious sky palace's ship was really a pirate ship, there was also a righteous pirate ship. The mysterious sky palace's power is spread throughout the endless starry sky, and there are a large number of true self-realm experts. There are many things about the mysterious sky palace that couldn't be told to Murong Yu now. Therefore, Yin Jingtian could only emphasize this point again. All right, I'll join the mysterious sky palace. However, I don't want my identity as a disciple of the mysterious sky palace to be leaked for the time being. Murong Yu looked at the slightly excited Yin Jingtian with amusement and agreed to join the mysterious sky palace. Anyway, Murong Yu wouldn't lose anything by joining the mysterious sky palace. If he didn't want to stay in the mysterious sky palace, then he could just leave the mysterious sky palace. The reason why he didn't want to reveal his identity as a disciple of the mysterious sky palace, once his identity was exposed, then many people would be apprehensive about his identity and wouldn't dare to do anything to him. This was very disadvantageous to Murong Yu. A cultivator's growth couldn't be separated from battle. Otherwise, they would be like flowers in a greenhouse, unable to withstand destruction. All right, Yin Jingtian shouted and then grabbed Murong Yu. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared from where he was. When he appeared again, Murong Yu found that he had already arrived at a large hall. In a large hall, there were more than a dozen existences with huge auras. These people should be the elders of the mysterious sky palace. Great Elder, fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Murong Yu has agreed to join our mysterious sky palace. Yin Jingtian bowed to a benevolent-looking old man and couldn't help but say excitedly. Hearing this, a hint of surprise flashed across the eyes of the other people. Murong Yu, this peerless genius, if properly trained, even if he left the Milky Way star field, he would definitely amaze the world. Good, good, good. The great elder of the mysterious sky palace said good 3 times in a row. Murong Yu greets the great elder and all the elders. Murong Yu bowed to everyone. Murong Yu, no need to be greedy. Sit down. The great elder spoke. At the same time, he threw a purple token engraved with the word mysterious sky to Murong Yu. Murong Yu sat down on the chair next to him without any nervousness. At the same time, he looked at the purple token in his hand. Murong Yu, you are the first official disciple in the history of our mysterious sky palace's Milky Way star field branch. The great elder spoke again. Murong Yu's hand trembled, and he almost threw away the token in his hand. The mysterious sky palace had existed for so many years, and he was the first official first? At this moment, Murong Yu felt that he had been fooled. Kid, what nonsense are you thinking? There aren't many official disciples in the headquarters of the mysterious sky palace. If you want to become an official disciple, you have to go through various tests. Under normal circumstances, the disciples recruited by the branch can only be regarded as entry-level disciples. They have to pass the test of the headquarters to become an official disciple. Murong Yu was puzzled. When he was about to ask why he could become an official disciple directly, Yin Jingtian continued to explain, however, every branch has an official disciple quota. And our Milky Way star field has only used this quota now. For countless years, only you are worthy of us using this quota. So that's how it is, Murong Yu thought in his heart. It seems that my potential has suppressed them. This trip was not in vain. In fact, Murong Yu had long known that the mysterious sky palace had nothing to do with the top 10 celestial realm experts in the Milky Way star field. Instead, it was a big force outside the Milky Way star field. Before coming here, Tianming even told Murong Yu that if there was a chance, he must join the mysterious sky palace. Previously, the reason why Murong Yu was dawdling was because he wanted to get more benefits. However, what Murong Yu didn't know was that even if he didn't dawdle, he would get the greatest benefits. because he was the only official disciple of the mysterious Sky Palace branch in the Milky Way star field. In the Milky Way star field, you have a part of the power of our elders. You can directly kill the cultivators who are unfavorable to our mysterious Sky Palace. You can even kill those entry-level disciples first and report later, Yin Jingtian said in a deep voice. In addition to these, with the mysterious Sky Palace disciple token, everyone in the Milky Way star field had to give face. Otherwise, it would be opposing the mysterious Sky Palace. In other words, if Morong Yu had his identity token, he could do whatever he wanted in the Milky Way star field. Even Skeleton Field didn't dare to touch him. A cold light flashed in Morong Yu's eyes. When he heard about his authority, he couldn't help but think of that disciple, surnamed Zhou. It was fine if that guy didn't come looking for trouble. Otherwise, Morong Yu would definitely execute him. Next, the elders of the mysterious Sky Palace carefully told Morong Yu some things about the mysterious Sky Palace that he was qualified to know at this stage. Then, they gave him a large number of heaven and earth treasures, even cultivation methods and inheritances. On this point, the elders of the mysterious Sky Palace were not stingy, and their actions also made Morong Yu's favorable impression of them rise. He gradually treated them as disciples of the mysterious Sky Palace. Morong Yu, soon, the various branches of the mysterious Sky Palace will hold an exchange meeting. I hope that during this period of time, you can improve your combat strength as much as possible. At that time, you can win glory for our Milky Way star field branch. In the end, Yin Jingtian and even the elders looked at Morong Yu with expectant eyes. Chapter 21:12. There was a plaza in front of the Divine Mystery Palace, and a huge stone tablet stood in the plaza. 100 Talents List. These three majestic words were at the top of the stone tablet, clearly indicating the identity of this stone tablet. Apart from these three words, there were 100 names below. Obviously, these 100 people were the Milky Way galaxy's 100 Talents List. They were also the 100 people with the most potential in the Milky Way galaxy. On this day, many people had already gathered in front of the 100 Talents List, staring at it. It was already the second day after Morong Yu's test, and it was time to announce the results. Although there were thousands of people taking the test every day, under normal circumstances, no one would look at the 100 Talents List, unless it was someone who came to the Divine Mystery Mountain for the first time to take a look to satisfy their curiosity. After all, the names on the 100 Talents List, and even the rankings, usually did not change. However, ever since they saw Morong Yu's battle prowess, many people believed that he could definitely make it to the 100 Talents List. Now, they wanted to see where Morong Yu would make it to. It's changed. The 100 Talents List has changed. Suddenly, someone shouted loudly. Whoosh! Everyone's eyes shot to the 100 Talents List. Rongjiruo, an unfamiliar name, suddenly squeezed into the 100 Talents List, pushing down the last place on the list. Everyone stared at the name, Rongjiruo, without blinking, because they all knew that Rongjiruo's ranking was not the final ranking. Sure enough, after a while, the name Rongjiruo flew up the 100 Talents List. 90th, 85th, 80th, it went straight up and finally stopped at 35th place. Rongjiruo, 35th place on the 100 Talents List. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and some people who did not know Rongjiruo's identity began to inquire about her. After all, anyone on the 100 Talents List was worth befriending, let alone 35th place Rongjiruo. Moreover, she was a woman. Look, Morong Yu has made it to the list. This person is only in the insight realm, but he has the battle prowess of a high-level Genesis realm. Not only is his battle prowess terrifying, but his potential is even more terrifying. Do you think he'll make it to the top 20? If he doesn't have any background, he'll definitely be in the top 30. However, if he had a powerful background, he should have no problem getting into the top 10. After all, the 100 Talents List did not only focus on battle prowess and potential. However, combat strength and potential are also very important aspects, someone said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded, and no one said anything else. They just stared at the list of 100 talents. Just like Rong Zhao, Morong Yu's name stopped at the 100th place, forcefully pushing down Yu Huffing's original 100th place. At the same time, in a place extremely far away from the Heavenly Mystery Palace, Yu Huffing let out an indignant roar. Which two goddamn bastards pushed me down from the rankings? Do you think it was easy for me to enter the 100 Talents list? Originally, he was ranked 99th on the 100 Talents list. However, when Rong Zhuo charged over, he automatically moved to the 100th position. Thus, when Murong Yu entered the 100 Talents list again, he automatically left the list. Every genius on the 100 Talents list would receive a 100 Talents token. The 100 Talents token was the status symbol of the cultivators on the 100 Talents list. At the same time, they could see their own ranking information. Once their ranking rose or fell, the 100 Talents token would be displayed. However, no other cultivators could be seen on the 100 Talents token. As a result, Yu Huffing had no idea that the ones on the list were Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo. Of course, he was not the only one whose ranking had changed. Those ranked 35th and below had automatically dropped a place. Once Murong Yu reached the front, their rankings would drop again. However, because they were no longer in the last two places, no one dropped out of the 100 Talents list again. This won't do. I have to raise my ranking no matter what. It's easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but difficult to go from extravagant to frugal. Yu Huffing was filled with grief and indignation. He immediately took off in the direction of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. At the same time, Murong Yu's ranking began to soar. 90, 80, 70. In the blink of an eye, Murong Yu had already reached the 20th place. And this was not the final result. Murong Yu's ranking was still advancing. 10th, 9th, 8th. At this moment, the geniuses who were originally in the top 10 were finally alarmed. Their rankings had actually dropped by one place. Who had made it into the top 10? As a result, numerous messages were sent to the Heavenly Mystery Palace from afar. The news of Murong Yu making it into the top 10 of the 100 Talents list also spread through the entire Milky Way star field at a frightening speed. 3rd place. Yang Yuanwu, who was originally 3rd place, has been pushed to 4th place. A cultivator who had just rushed over exclaimed in disbelief near the 100 Talents list. However, the people near the 100 Talents list did not have much of a reaction. It was not that they were not shocked, but that they had already become numb to the shock of Murong Yu. 2nd place. Kong Jiaping has been stepped down. I wonder if Murong Yu will step over Luan Ruiming and become 1st place on the 100 Talents list. I heard that Murong Yu snatched Luan Ruiming's token during the Rong family's gathering of heroes. Murong Yu's name stopped at 2nd place. Just when everyone thought that Murong Yu would ultimately only be 2nd place on the 100 Talents list, his name suddenly jumped. 1st place on the 100 Talents list. What? Which bastard stepped on me? After seeing the 100 Talents tokens prompt, Luan Ruiming, who was cultivating, could not help but jump up. Among the younger generation of the Milky Way star field, who can compare to me? I am the strongest, and no one can surpass me. Luan Ruiming roared in disbelief. Could it be that something went wrong with the 100 Talents token? Luan Ruiming growled as he looked at the 100 Talents token. However, in the end, he still believed that there was nothing wrong with the 100 Talents list. I want to see who stepped on me. Luan Ruiming roared in his heart as he flew towards the Heavenly Mystery Palace. In fact, he did not have to go there personally. Naturally, someone would send him detailed information about what had happened at the Heavenly Mystery Palace. However, he wanted to see it for himself. In fact, it was not just him. The original top 10 of the 100 Talents list, and even more people rushed towards the Heavenly Mystery Palace. What? Murong Yu and Rong Zhuo made it into the 100 Talents list? They squeezed me down? Murong Yu even made it to 1st place now? Along the way, Yu Huffeng was shocked when he received the news. Then he laughed loudly. There was no jealousy or resentment on his face. There was only a sincere smile. However, Murong Yu even made it to 1st place. How can I not be on the list? I have to work hard to make it to the top 60. Yu Huffeng wanted to brag a little. However, when he thought of his battle prowess and background, he became discouraged again. In the end, he set his goal at the top 60. Which bastard squeezed me down from the list? Come out, I want to fight you one-on-one. A thunderous voice suddenly resounded in the vicinity of the 100 Talents list. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, only to see an enraged young man rushing over murderously. It was not Yu Hufeng, but the pitiful guy who was originally ranked 100th on the 100 Talents list. Everyone fell silent. Then, they all looked at the first place of the 100 Talents list. First place, Yu. He's the one who squeezed me down? When he saw the completely unfamiliar name of Yu, the young man was instantly stunned. In the end, he even turned around and ran away, his face red. Yu had made it to first place not only because of his terrifying background, but also because of his extremely terrifying battle prowess and potential. Although he was considered a genius in the Milky Way star field. However, compared to the first place of the 100 Talents list, he was nothing. Moreover, geniuses of that level would usually have a certain amount of supporters. However, he was making a big fuss here, declaring that he would defeat Yu. Perhaps Yu would not even have to show up. He would be killed by Yu's supporters. Although he was ranked 100th on the 100 Talents list, there were many people in the Milky Way star field who could kill him. After all, he was only a person of a younger generation with decent potential. In terms of true battle prowess, Yu Hufeng was ranked 99th on the 100 Talents list when he was only at the 5th level of the Genesis realm. How strong could his battle prowess be? First, he won first place in the Rome family's meeting of heroes. Now, he suppressed all the other heroes on the 100 Talents list and became one of the young people with the greatest potential in the Milky Way star field. Yu's name spread throughout the entire Milky Way star field overnight. He was completely famous. There were many benefits to being famous, but there were also a lot of troubles. For example, Yu's previous enemies also knew about his battle prowess. In this way, when they fought in the future, his opponents would know that he was invincible. This was also why Yu did not use all his trump cards. He still had the power of faith and the power of shadow steps. If those enemies dared to make a move, Yu would definitely let them know what regret was. Moreover, now everyone only knew that he was Tianming's disciple, number 1 on the 100 Talents list. They did not know that he was the only official disciple of the Tianji Palace in the Milky Way star field. If Yu really wasn't a match for him, then once he revealed this sign, his enemies would be scared away. Of course, if Yu wanted this effect, he did not need the Tianji Palace to keep it secret. Once the Tianji Palace announced his identity, who in the Milky Way star field would dare to touch him? What he needed was battle. Battle. Breakthrough in battle, and increase his strength in battle. For example, now, Yu rejected the Tianji Palace's good intentions of sending an elder with peak Genesis realm battle prowess to protect him. Kid, since you don't need our protection, I don't want you to die either. You must know that you are the hope of our Tianji Palace's Milky Way star field branch. If you die, it's equivalent to killing the hope of all our elders. Yan Jingtian said earnestly as he patted Yu's shoulder. Yu's face darkened. He did not want Yan Jingtian's protection because he did not want to live under protection. In this way, once he encountered a battle, he would have some reliance and would not be able to use his full strength. It would not be beneficial to his improvement at all. However, this did not mean that he wanted to die. Thus, he did not even bother to say anything and pulled Rong Zhuruo away. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.